Beneath the crushing weight of ancient oceans and across deserts scorched by vanished suns, there lies a whisper, a memory etched into stone and steel that predates every empire we've ever learned about. Long before humanity staked its claim on these lands, there were architects who quarried impossibly precise monoliths, craftsmen who alloyed metals that gleamed like liquid flame, and navigators who charted courses not by compass, but by the rhythm of the stars themselves. These civilizations rose in glorious splendor, turning sand into cities and rock into temples aligned with constellations now obscured by time. Then, on a single night of cataclysmic upheaval, when skies burned, seas boiled, and the very crust of the world heaved, their lights were snuffed out. No scrolls remain to tell their stories, no monuments stand intact to commemorate their triumphs. And yet their heartbeat echoes in submerged terraces, in rings of drowned pillars, in metal ingots fused with alloys unknown to modern science. What unimaginable disaster could erase such brilliance from the face of the earth? And why do these hidden testimonies still pulse beneath our feet, daring us to uncover the truths they guard so jealously? Let us descend together into the forbidden depths of pre-flood history, where the line between myth and reality shatters, and the greatest secrets of our world wait in silent vigil. Over 1,000 years before our calendars began ticking, the world lay in a fragile balance between wonder and ruin. In those early days, recorded only in cryptic genealogies and fragmented myths, humanity walked hand in hand with powers beyond our comprehension. Vast cities rose in a single generation, their marble spires and iron gates gleaming under skies unscarred by smog or war. Men and women lived for centuries, guardians of knowledge so ancient it seemed to predate creation itself. These were the people of the pre-flood world, the architects of an age that Scripture barely dares to speak of. The book of Genesis offers a brief, startling glimpse. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. In one breath, we learn of angelic beings descending to earth, and in the next, giants roaming the plains, their footsteps shaking the foundations of fledgling kingdoms. Technology blossomed, weapons of bronze ignited arguments between city-states, irrigation networks transformed deserts into oases, and metal alloys rivaling modern steel were forged by craftsmen whose names have long since vanished. Yet it was not a slow decline but a sudden reset that marked the end of that golden age. The waters above opened in torrents of divine judgment, rains unceasing for 40 days and nights, ocean currents turned into surging maelstroms, and mountains swept away like sandcastles beneath a tidal wave. Entire continents were redrawn, coastal kingdoms slipped beneath the waves, the memory of paradise drowned under a blanket of silt and sorrow. Only one vessel, crafted at the behest of the lone righteous, survived the cataclysm, carrying the seed of a new humanity. But before the deluge, those ancients had created marvels we still discover today. Submerged terraces off forgotten shores, their steps once crowded with traders and pilgrims. Monolithic pillars aligned to constellations now shifted by millennia. Metal ingots recovered from shipwrecks whose composition defies every known alloy. Why did the giants of that era vanish so completely? Were they undone by hubris, corrupted by forbidden knowledge, or simply victims of a cosmic realignment beyond mortal control? And what role did the Watchers, those fallen beings, play in unraveling the moral fabric of civilization? Enoch's apocryphal writings hint at archives buried in secret caverns filled with prophecies and star maps meant to guide the righteous through the cycles of rise and fall. In the hush after the storm, a few survivors stepped onto soil cleansed by judgment. They found cathedrals of coral where cities once stood, and inscriptions half erased in caves carved by ancient hands. Clutching fragments of memory, genealogies, songs, mythic chronicles, they rebuilt not from ignorance but from grief, writing down every detail so that the sins of the fathers would not be repeated. From their ashes arose the laws of new kingdoms, the first temple foundations, and the sacred oaths that would shape every civilization to follow. Today, when we trace the lines of genetic oddities, when we uncover flood layers buried in Mesopotamian plains, or when we detect submerged ruins off coastlines long eroded, we are touching the echoes of that lost world. Every artifact is a testament to lives lived on the edge of transcendence, every legend a whisper of glories erased by divine decree. And beneath our modern cities, in hidden repositories of clay tablets and scrolls, the faint heartbeat of the pre-flood civilization still awaits its rediscovery. As the waters recede in memory, we stand at the threshold of revelation. The next chapter will take us beyond the gravelled floodwaters, up into the realms where prophecy and history converge. We will meet the man who walked with angels, the scribe chosen to safeguard the secrets of heaven and earth. His name is Enoch, and his story is the bridge between what was and what will be. Above the storm-swept plains of early humanity, where the last echoes of the deluge still trembled in the earth, a lone figure walked a path between two worlds. Enoch was not a king nor a prophet by birth, but he became the first mortal chosen to stand at heaven's gate, and to return bearing secrets no human had ever known. In an age where cities lay buried beneath flood silt and memory itself was a fragile thread, he carried the burden of preserving an entire cosmic archive. From the moment the Watchers, those angelic sentinels, looked upon his faithful heart, Enoch's fate was sealed. He did not shrink from their luminous presence. Instead, he reached out with steady hands, ready to learn the language of stars and the architecture of angelic realms. As the heavens parted like a veil, he ascended through rings of light and choral echoes, leaving behind a world still reeling in the aftermath of divine judgment. With each step upward, he stepped farther from mortal limitation, his vision expanding until he beheld the library of the firmament, a place where time flowed in spirals, and every moment of creation was encoded in sapphire tablets. Listen closely to the tale of his otherworldly journey. At the summit of celestial councils, Enoch stood before the Most High, surrounded by archangels whose wings were woven from dawn's first rays. They entrusted him with sacred scrolls describing the movement of galaxies, the names of fallen stars, and the blueprint of every creature's soul. Their voices were not words, but vibrations that resonated through Enoch's bones, each tone unlocking doors in his mind. In that instant, he became more than a man. He was a living conduit between earth and sky. Yet the task was far from simple. To deliver these revelations to humankind, Enoch had to translate divine resonance into human script. Night after night, by the light of a ghostly lantern that never waned, he set quill to parchment. He wrote of angelic hierarchies, of cosmic cycles that rose and fell like tides, and of the Watcher's own origins, beings once fashioned from pure intention, now fractured by forbidden love and the weight of mortal sin. Each chapter he completed trembled with power. In one, he charted the birth of new constellations. In another, he catalogued the names of souls destined for redemption or ruin. All the while, shadows of doubt crept in. How could mere words contain the brilliance of celestial knowledge? What danger lurked in teaching humans the mathematics of the divine. The Watchers reminded him gently, knowledge, like fire, can forge or consume. But in your stewardship, balance must prevail. And so Enoch wove caution into his writings, warnings of pride, laments for lost innocence, and prayers for a world still healing from the flood's scars. When at last he descended back to the trembling earth, he carried not just ink-stained scrolls, but the very heartbeat of heaven. He gathered the faithful and shared truths that would shape every generation to come, the cycles of ages, the paths of angels, and the fragile covenant between Creator and created. His words became the cornerstone of hidden traditions, whispered in secluded sanctuaries and copied into secret codices. Even kings and scholars, unaware of his full journey, revered him as the scribe who walked the skies. But Enoch's legacy extends beyond what we can read. Some say that on certain nights, when the moon's silver arc aligns with Orion's belt, his spirit returns to whisper unfinished verses to those who listen. Others claim that fragments of his celestial diaries lie buried in caves guarded by ancient orders, awaiting the day when humanity's heart is ready to receive their full wisdom. As dawn breaks on our own era of discovery, when satellites peer into the cosmic dark and quantum theories edge toward the divine, it is Enoch's courage that reminds us, between earth and heaven there lies a bridge built by a single man's unwavering faith. His journey teaches that truth cannot be confined by mortal boundaries. It must be carried forward generation to generation until the next cycle of rise and fall brings fresh questions and deeper revelations. Now, with the celestial archives entrusted to new seekers, our quest turns back to earth, to a place of exile and enduring mystery, where the marked wanderer carved the first city of the outcasts and named it in sorrow. Up next, we will cross the wastelands of exile and peer into the land of Nod, the exiled city, where every stone may hide a fragment of the memory Enoch so valiantly preserved. A scorching wind blew across the empty plains where the first exile dared to raise his voice. East of Eden, in a land stripped of divine favor and marked by eternal wanderlust, Cain, the world's first outcast, found himself hemmed in by dust and regret. Banned from the fertile valleys of his birth, he was compelled to carve out a destiny among shadows and silence. But rather than fade into oblivion, he defied his curse. He built the first city. From the moment he laid the foundation stones, every rock carried the weight of his sorrow and the spark of his resilience. Cain named it Enoch, after the son he tragically lost to the world's unfolding violence. There, amid low clay walls and shallow wells, he gathered other wanderers, those shunned for deeds real or imagined, refugees of early humanity's fractured grace. Together they fashioned shelters from sun-baked adobe and formed a community bound by a shared pledge to reclaim purpose from punishment. In those precarious days, to build a city was to defy fate itself. Water was scarce, and every drop was fought over like treasure. The exiles dug channels that trickled life into parched soil, planting hardy grains that seemed to whisper hope in the wind. Long evenings were spent around flickering hearths, where stories of Eden's grandeur mingled with dreams of a kinder dawn. Children grew up learning both the shame of their ancestors and the ambition to transcend it. Yet civilization came at a cost. The desert sands, shifting with each dawn, threatened to swallow Enoch whole. Raiders from distant clans tested its defenses, forcing the exiles to raise crude fortifications and train in the use of bent spears. Mistrust crept into the heart of the city. Who among them was truly repentant, and who plotted revenge? As walls rose, so did suspicion, As crops flourished, so did envy. The very bonds that held Enoch together trembled under the weight of human frailty. Amid these struggles, Cain stood at the city's central tower each dawn, gazing toward the horizon. He yearned for forgiveness he could not speak aloud, and for a sign that his lineage might yet be redeemed. The wind carried echoes of celestial voices, reminding him of the divine spark still flickering in his blood. In the hush before sunrise, he prayed for guidance, a plea for mercy so profound it seemed to scorch the sky. Over time, Enoch became more than a refuge. It was a testament to the exile's defiance of oblivion, a monument to human tenacity. Its clay ramparts bore the imprints of countless hands. Its streets echoed with footfalls determined to survive. Merchants arrived from distant tribes, trading copper ornaments and pressed dates. Scholars came bearing scraps of ancient lore, hoping to learn from the city that rose from disgrace. Even pilgrims, drawn by whispers of Cain's undying resolve, made the perilous journey, seeking counsel on endurance and second chances. Yet in the heart of Enoch, the memory of Eden remained both blessing and burden. Each year, on the anniversary of his exile, Cain led his people in a silent march around the city's perimeter. They carried torches whose flames symbolized the fragile hope that Ammon could chart his own course beyond condemnation. On that night, the desert air would hum with candlelight and quiet vows, as though heaven and earth paused to witness their oath. But every city of exile harbors secrets in its foundations. Beneath Enoch's streets lay hidden catacombs, tunnels hewn by his own hand, intended as sanctuaries should the world's scorn descend again. In those dim corridors, rare scrolls survived, treaties between rival clans, clay tablets inscribed with early prophecies, and the faint imprint of words once whispered by angels. Scholars who later discovered these relics would marvel at their blend of human desperation and divine insight, evidence that even the fallen carried seeds of redemption. As decades passed, Enoch transformed from a symbol of shame into a beacon of hope for all who dared to rebuild amid ruin. Its name became a byword for reinvention. Its legacy carried eastward along caravan routes that skirted shifting dunes. And though the city itself eventually succumbed to time and encroaching sands, its story endured, in songs, in scrolls, and in the beating hearts of those who sought a second chance. Now, as we turn from the marked roads of the exiled toward the fertile delta of ancient Iberia, a new mystery emerges, a kingdom whispered of in Phoenician logs and Greek myths, a realm of silver rivers and lost gold. Soon we will stand at the mouth of the Guadalquivir, where once a formidable people flourished in splendor and vanished without a trace. Prepare to journey westward into Tartessos, the mysterious Iberian kingdom where every relic raises more questions than it answers. Beyond the straits that cradle the Atlantic's restless tides, where sun-scorched plains give way to verdant river valleys, once stood Tartessos, an empire of riches so fabled that even Phoenician merchants spoke of it in hushed awe. Imagine a city carved from golden light, its streets paved with silver dust, where traders bore ingots of gleaming ore and sculptors shaped ivory into the likenesses of gods. Long before Rome's eagles ever darkened Iberia's skies, Tartessos reigned as Europe's first cradle of wealth and mystery, and then vanished without a trace. To understand its allure, we begin at the Guadalquivir's mouth. Satellite surveys and sonar scans have revealed submerged causeways and rectilinear foundations lying just beyond the modern delta, telltale signs of a harbourside metropolis that thrived when sea levels were lower. Coastal marshes, once fertile floodplains, concealed docks where Phoenician triremes unloaded copper, tin, and exotic timbers. Inscriptions on clay tablets, unearthed near Seville, recount visits by envoys bearing gifts to King Argantonio, his name echoing in the annals of Aristotle himself. Yet written records are scarce. We chiefly rely on Greek and Roman historians who describe Tartessos as the land where silver sleeps, and chronicled its rivers running with wealth, not water. Pomponius Mela wrote of a people so affluent they buried their dead in golden sarcophagi. Pliny the Elder marveled at red coral fashioned into drinking cups and amber beads traded from lands whose names have been lost. These accounts shimmer between credibility and exaggeration, but the archaeological fingerprints are real. Workshops laden with smelting slag, quarries where miners chipped at ore-bearing veins, and port remains whose scale implies a population in the tens of thousands. Still, the heart of Tartessos lay inland, at a settlement archaeologists now call Mesas de Asta. There, terraced platforms rose above fig orchards and olive groves, their masonry walls aligned precisely to the sunrise on the summer solstice, a celestial calibration that mirrored techniques seen only in later Mediterranean cities. At the center stood a great hall, its foundations large enough to support pillars carved from local limestone. Here, tribal chieftains and visiting dignitaries broke bread beneath painted friezes depicting winged bulls and river gods, symbols of a culture that blended Iberian traditions with Eastern influences. Trade routes radiated like spokes on a wheel. To the west reached the silver mines of the Rio Tinto hills. To the south, they wound through cork forests toward North Africa. To the north and east, they threaded through mountain passes into the heart of the peninsula. Caravans of laden mules navigated these paths, their bells chiming a melody that echoed across hills and valleys, an audible promise of commerce and connection. In marketplaces, linguists still puzzle over the Tartessian script, a series of angular signs carved into pottery shards and steles. Its origins remain contested. Is it a local tongue, or the echo of Phoenician scribes adapting to Iberian dialects? Amid such prosperity, why did Tartessos fade? Scholars debate a confluence of factors: climatic shifts that turned arable lands into salt flats, overexploitation of silver veins, and the rise of rival powers in the Western Mediterranean. Some point to seismic upheavals, earthquakes that battered coastal defenses, followed by tsunamis that inundated ports. Others argue for social unrest triggered by widening gaps between the merchant elite and agrarian laborers. What seems certain is that by the 1st century BCE, references to Tartessos in classical texts had grown faint, and within a few generations, its name survived only in legend. Yet the spirit of Tartessos endures beneath centuries of sediment. Every excavation season yields new marvels: gold-inlaid jewelry buried in ritual graves, amphorae stamped with emblems that match carvings on distant relics, and fragments of mosaics hinting at artistic sophistication well beyond contemporary neighbor cultures. Maritime archaeologists diving the shallow reefs off Huelva have documented stone breakwaters textured with wedge-shaped blocks, engineering solutions to the Atlantic's unpredictable swells. In local folklore, elders still whisper of the sunken palaces, where fairies guard jeweled mirrors and saltwater seeps into ornate windows. Children are warned not to stray too far from riverbanks at dusk, for there the spirits of Tartessian merchants may beckon with lanterns crafted from glass, as clear and bright as tears. Whether myth or memory, these tales attest to a collective longing for a lost golden age, a yearning reflected even in medieval chronicles that describe Andalusian gardens planted atop ancient ruins, their blossoms unconsciously reenacting the splendor of their predecessors. As we peer across the centuries, one cannot help but ask, What lessons lie hidden in the rise and fall of that Iberian kingdom? How did a civilization so intertwined with sea and soil achieve heights we still struggle to fathom? And why did the tide of history wash it away so completely? The answers may yet lie in unexcavated tombs or deciphered glyphs, waiting for that next breakthrough. But our journey now turns southward, away from the Guadalquivir's silver path to another sacred shore where Egyptian priests once spoke of a distant land of incense and ebony, a realm they called Punt. In the next chapter, we will navigate the Red Sea's gleaming corridors and seek the truth behind Punt, Egypt's sacred land, where the gods themselves are said to have walked. From the moment the cedarwood vessels set sail down the Red Sea's cobalt corridor, Egypt's priests knew they were embarking on more than a trading mission. They were voyaging into legend. Punt, the land of incense and ebony, lay somewhere beyond the horizon of cartographers' maps, a realm so imbued with sacred bounty that its very name meant the land of the god. Each pharaoh, until the end of the New Kingdom, dispatched fleets to its shores, returning laden with treasures that became the heart of temple rites, frankincense that smouldered like liquid gold, myrrh that perfumed the air with the essence of eternity, and baboons whose watchful eyes guarded the thresholds of tombs. Archaeological clues now glimmer like buried stars. Reliefs at Dar el-Bahari immortalize Queen Hatshepsut's expedition. At the temple's base, artisans carved amphora-laden ships cutting through stylized waves, followed by depictions of Puntite dwellings perched on stilts above clear lagoons. These images resonate with recent underwater surveys along the Eritrean coast, where sonar has traced stone cairns and linear walls submerged beneath centuries of silt. Ceramic shards, imported Egyptian pottery, mingled with local clays, offer chemical fingerprints that match the legendary frankincense groves of modern-day Somaliland. Yet Punt was more than a source of exotic goods. It was a crucible of cultural exchange. The Egyptians recorded encounters with Queen Ati, described as tall and imposing, draped in textiles finer than linen, her crown framed by ostrich plume fans. Historians debate whether she was a monarch or a high priestess, but her portrait endures, a symbol of Punt's sovereign mystery. Envoys brought back not only rare commodities, but also unfamiliar customs. Ritual dances beneath ebony canopies, hymns sung to a pantheon of local deities whose names still echo in fragmentary papyri. The land's geography itself was sacred. Caravan routes threaded through acacia forests and sandridge plateaus, following seasonal torrents that nourished hidden oases. Along these paths, merchants unrolled hides dyed with ochre and traded ostrich feathers for copper tools. Petroglyphs etched into granite boulders depict long-necked giraffes drinking at ephemeral pools and herds of peacocks flicking jewel-bright tails. Scholars now believe these engravings mark ritual sites where Puntites offered the first fruits of harvest to river spirits, a practice the Egyptians later adopted in their own Nile festivals. But why did Punt remain elusive? No city ruins of stone stand proud like those of Karnak or Thebes. Some argue its settlements were built from perishable materials, wood, reeds, thatch, designed to blend seamlessly with the landscape. Others point to tectonic shifts that swallowed coastal plains, consigning once flat shores to the depths. A third theory suggests Punt operated as a network of enclaves rather than a single capital, its influence carried by mobile kinship groups whose identities were fluid, defined by clan totems rather than fixed boundaries. Despite the mystery, the impact of Punt on Egypt's spiritual life cannot be overstated. In the festival of Opet, priests kindled incense sourced from distant Punt, believing its smoke bridged human and divine. Tomb paintings depict the god Osiris receiving Puntite tribute, symbolizing the renewal of Ma'at, cosmic order, each year. Linguists searching hieratic texts have identified loanwords that likely originated in the Puntite tongue, hints of a language once woven into the fabric of Nile civilization. Underneath modern sands, chance discoveries continue to illuminate ancient ties. In 2003, divers off the Dahlak archipelago uncovered basalt stele fragments carved with Puntite iconography, stylized ibex horns and crescent moons, symbols linked to lunar worship. Fragments of an amphitheater-like structure submerged off Eritrea's Dahlak Kebir bear alignment to solstice sunrises, a ritual architecture that echoes temples on the Nile. Each find is a puzzle piece, suggesting Punt was both an ally and an inspiration, a living testament to the Egyptians' belief that paradise existed not only beyond death, but across the waves. What then became of Punt's own legacy? Oral traditions among coastal tribes recall ancestors who journeyed by dugout canoe to markets on islands now lost beneath the sea. In coral-encrusted caves, tribal elders still recite songs of a golden land, where pharaohs' ships once landed and departed under a sky painted with unfamiliar stars. Whether these are echoes of a vanished kingdom or pure myth, they underscore a timeless truth. Punt occupied a space between history and imagination. As the Red Sea's tides rise and fall, so too does our understanding of this sacred land. Future excavations may unearth the first true city of Punt, or reveal scripts that decode the lips that spoke its name. Until then, we carry forward the incense-scented memory of voyages that shaped an empire's soul. And now, having traced the currents from Libya's shores back to Egypt's desert temples, our path leads inland, where a civilization older than the pharaohs engraved its legacy in stone. Next, we turn to Osirion, Egypt's pre-dynastic civilization, to uncover the shadowed builders who laid the foundations beneath the sands of history. Long before the first hieroglyph was etched onto papyrus, and centuries before the towering pyramids rose from the sands, there stood in Abydos a structure so enigmatic it defies every rule of ancient construction. Built from colossal granite slabs each weighing tens of tons, the Osirian submerged corridors and water-filled chambers whisper of a civilization that predates Egypt's earliest dynasties. This was not a tomb, but a monument to Osiris himself, the god-king whose legacy became the cornerstone of Egyptian identity. Arriving by boat, one follows the ancient causeway that once connected the temple of Seti Thatun to the Osirians' hidden key. A single beam of morning light, filtered through stone lintels, illuminates a granite basin carved to mirror the primeval waters from which life first emerged. Here, priests may have reenacted the resurrection myth, Osiris slain, his body reclaimed from the Nile's depths, and reborn to rule the underworld. The reflection in that still pool was more than theatrical. It was a cosmic symbol, affirming the king's promise of renewal. Underwater explorations reveal a series of parallel galleries, their walls jointed with precision, so fine no metal blade could pass between them. Sound carries in mysterious ways. A whispered incantation echoes tenfold as if the very rock is alive with memory. Archaeologists postulate that the Osirion was originally dry, its channels hydraulically sealed, becoming submerged only after the shifting course of the Nile. But local lore insists it was always a temple of the subterranean waters, harnessing artesian springs that bubbled with mineral-rich currents. The granite blocks themselves pose a riddle. Quarried from Aswan nearly 500 miles south, they were transported upriver on barges guided by stellar navigation. Each stone's surfaces bear faint tool marks that modern engineers cannot fully explain. The cuts are too straight, the edges too true. Some suggest the Osirians' builders possessed geometry and lifting techniques lost to time. Others whisper of divine blueprints handed down by Osiris's first priests. Within the inner sanctum lies a massive central dais, carved from a single monolithic slab. It is flanked by symmetrically recessed alcoves, each aligned precisely to the rising of Sirius on the summer solstice, a celestial event that heralded the Nile's inundation. This alignment suggests the Osirian was not merely sacred architecture, but an astronomical instrument marking the rhythm of the great river and, by extension, the heartbeat of Egyptian civilization. Yet the Osirians' greatest secret may be hidden in its water. Analysis of sediment cores indicates that its waters were once clear enough to reflect the temple's vaulted ceilings in perfect symmetry. Rituals performed here would have evoked a realm between earth and sky, a liminal space where priests communed with ancestors and gods. Votive offerings, fragments of faience, copper grippers, and even small statues have been dredged from the floor, hinting at ceremonies meant to secure fertility, longevity, and safe passage to the afterlife. As dynastic power consolidated, the Osirian receded from official memory. New temples rose. Pharaohs sought to inscribe their names in stones across Upper and Lower Egypt. And yet, the old shrine endured beneath rising groundwater, perhaps intentionally flooded to preserve its sanctity, perhaps abandoned as the worship of Osiris shifted to other shrines. For millennia, its halls lay silent, known only to local keepers and whispered about in Coptic manuscripts until rediscovered by 19th century explorers. Today, divers entering its flooded chambers describe an uncanny stillness. Electric torches reveal carved reliefs now worn smooth by time, scenes of Osiris enthroned, his green face a testament to the fecundity he bestowed upon the living. The water's refracted light plays over those ancient images, giving them an uncanny vitality. Many who have ventured below speak of a profound sense of continuity, as if the boundary between past and present dissolves in that quiet, aqueous vault. What drove Osirian's architects to sink such a grand edifice into the earth's embrace? Was it a grand experiment in hydrological power, a ritual necessity, or the vestige of a pre-dynastic religion so powerful it demanded concealment from later, more politically driven cults? Each hypothesis brings us closer to an understanding, and yet deeper questions remain. As we emerge from the Osirians' reflective pools and step back onto the sunlit causeway, we carry with us not only fragments of granite and waterlogged relics, but a profound awareness that Egypt's pre-dynastic past is not merely a prologue to pharaonic glory, but a parallel thread of innovation and spirituality. And now, our journey turns to the heights of Dendera, where a different kind of illumination awaits. The Dendera light and ancient technology. Beneath the vaulted ceilings of the Hathor temple, where incense once curled like living spirits, there lies a stone tableau that defies every expectation of ancient craftsmanship. Instead of the usual parade of gods and pharaohs, we find reliefs of coiled serpents cradling bulbous shapes, each poised atop what appears to be a stand, complete with cable-like lines trailing behind. Could these carvings be more than mythic decoration? Could they depict a form of electrical lighting, a power source lost to the sands of time? Our journey begins in the 1st century BCE, when Roman architect Vitruvius penned his treatise, praising Egyptian ingenuity, yet remaining oblivious to Dendera's hidden secret. More than 2 millennia later, European explorers stumbled upon the Hathor shrine, marveling at its intact columns and vibrant pigments. But it wasn't until the 19th century that a German engineer, fascinated by the relief of a giant lamp, its filament-like snake suspended within an egg-shaped globe, proposed a radical thesis. The Egyptians had mastered AC power long before Edison's era. Examine the relief closely. The bulb measures nearly 2 meters end to end. Its glass-like body hovers within a protective arch, held by a pillar etched with what some interpret as coiled wiring. On one side sits a crocodile head, on the other the carved likeness of a priest holding a rod that might resemble a transformer. True mainstream Egyptologists attribute these motifs to stylized lotus flowers and serpent iconography, symbols of creation and rebirth. Yet the uncanny resemblance to modern lamp assemblies begs the question, was it purely symbolic, an allegory for divine illumination, or a literal record of a power system? Below these reliefs, stone conduits slope into the temple's subterranean chambers. Early surveyors noted channels cut into the walls, too uniform to be water drains, yet too shallow for standard utility conduits. Could these have housed copper piping for electrode cooling? Nearby, carved niches align with underground cisterns, structures that in theory could have functioned as capacitors using mineral-laden water to store a primitive form of energy. Modern experiments reveal that granite can oscillate piezoelectrically under pressure. Could the temple's very masonry have been part of a colossal resonant circuit? Across the courtyard stands a towering column, its shaft carved with repeated jed motifs, symbols of stability and cosmic order. Electrical engineers note that the D-jed resembles the schematic symbol for a capacitor bank or transformer core. If the priests understood the concept of dielectric materials, they may have exploited the insulating properties of certain stones. Rituals accompanying the relief, chants invoking the light of Hathor, could have doubled as ceremonial activation of these devices, channeling energy to illuminate the inner sanctum, where only the high priest might tread. Skeptics argue that no hardware remnants, no metal fragments, no corroded wires have been found. Yet Egypt's humid subterranean climate would rapidly corrode copper and bronze, leaving little trace after centuries. Furthermore, lens-shaped quartz crystals discovered in nearby workshops possess piezoelectric properties. When pressed or heated, they generate small electrical charges, a phenomenon documented only in the 19th century. Did ancient artisans grind these crystals into rudimentary rectifiers, capturing energy from thermal gradients within the temple lamps? Beyond the temple walls lie scattered fragments of small, hollow vessels coated in vitrified glass, an unexpected material requiring sustained high temperatures to form. Could these glazed shards be melted enclosures for lighting filaments, akin to early light bulbs? Or were they simply ritual urns for sacred oils? The line between utility and ritual is blurred. The Egyptians revered technology as divine gift, so every innovation became entwined with religious symbolism. Whatever the truth, the Dendera reliefs speak to a culture unafraid to merge art with science. If the temple did indeed house functioning lamps, they would have transformed the nocturnal worship experience, an ambient glow revealing hieroglyphs in stark relief, guiding processions through darkened corridors. Such lighting would have required a central power source, distribution network, and skilled technicians, an infrastructure comparable to modern electrical grids. Today, as we restore the Hathor sanctuary and study its remaining pigments under UV light, new discoveries emerge. Traces of organic compounds, possibly residues of insulating resins, adhere to carved surfaces. Ground-penetrating radar hints at buried chambers yet to be excavated. Each revelation deepens the mystery. Were these carvings blueprints for lost technology, or purely poetic allegories of spiritual illumination? As the Red Planet's rovers transmit images of human-made lights on Martian nights, we remind ourselves Earth's first wired temple may already lie beneath our gaze. The Dendera light, whether real or symbolic, beckons us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient ingenuity. Now, having shed light on Egypt's most electrifying enigma, our voyage turns eastward to India's Sunken port, where legend entwines with archaeology. Next, we will dive beneath the Arabian Sea to explore sunken Dwarka, Krishna's port, where the ocean floor holds the keys to an empire once ruled by a divine strategist. Beneath the dance of sunlight through the Arabian Sea's turquoise shallows, stone sentinels lie half-buried in drifting sands, a silent testament to a city that once thrummed with divine purpose. Nearly 2 millennia ago, poets sang of Dwarka's golden spires and bustling harbours, where Krishna ruled as both king and cosmic strategist. Today, marine archaeologists have awakened that legend, tracing submerged streets and pierced foundations that hint at a metropolis swallowed by the tides of time. Our story begins with scattered fishermen's nets snagging upon unexpected rubble, as if the sea itself was reluctant to release its secret. In 2001, the National Institute of Ocean Technology's sonar surveys revealed a network of rectilinear formations off Gujarat's coast, linear walls and platformed blocks lying 40 feet below the surface. At each sonar ping, astonishment rippled through the scientific community. Here were the remains of harbour jetties, wharf-like structures that could accommodate vessels large enough to host a royal entourage. Diving expeditions soon followed. Divers descended into crystalline depths and discovered granite pillars aligned in neat rows, their tops carved with lotus medallions and fish-scale motifs. Some columns stood intact, others lay toppled, encrusted with oyster colonies and coral fans. Among these ruins lay remnants of burnt bricks and roof tile fragments, pointing to brick-built structures once rising above ground. What city could these be, unless, as ancient texts suggest, this was the port of Krishna himself? Legends in the Mahabharata describe Dwarka as a marvel of urban planning, concentric walls girdling the city, each ring separated by waterways, and gates that opened to a labyrinth of canals. Texts recount glowing lamps lighting the streets at dusk and ivory elephants patrolling the marble avenues. Skeptics dismiss these accounts as poetic hyperbole, but the submerged grids correspond eerily to the concentric ring layout described in scripture. Could myth and sonar data be converging on the same blueprint? Artifacts recovered from the seabed deepen the mystery. Excavators dredged up stone anchors, some weighing over 100 kilograms, their grooves carved to secure maritime ropes. Copper nails corroded to verdigris hint at wooden superstructures once rising on stilts above the tidal flats. Even more puzzling is the discovery of a handful of pottery shards bearing incised geometric patterns, unlike any known on neighbouring coasts, perhaps the distinctive signature of Dwarkan kilns. Beyond material remains, oral traditions survive along the coast. In coastal villages, elders speak of sudden inundations that forced their ancestors inland, just as Krishna foresaw and evacuated his people before an apocalyptic flood. Their folk songs recount the lament of departing boats, of children waving goodbye to jeweled pavilions, of a city left empty and laid to rest beneath the waves. These memories, passed from generation to generation, sustain a living link to an otherwise vanished world. Geological studies offer clues to Dwarka's demise. Sediment cores indicate a massive tsunami event around 1500 BCE, likely triggered by an offshore earthquake. Such a cataclysm could have breached sea walls, flooded low-lying districts, and accelerated coastal erosion, transforming a thriving port into a submerged ruin within hours. Over centuries, shifting currents and sedimentation would bury most evidence, leaving only the sturdiest stonework for us to rediscover. Yet the full scope of Dwarka's grandeur remains tantalizingly out of reach. No inscriptions have emerged to confirm its ancient name, and no intact statuary of Krishna's personal seal has been found. What we do have are tantalizing glimpses: an intricately carved stone gateway discovered off Beit Dwarka, standing like a silent door to another realm, or the echo of bronze bell fragments that once hung in temple courtyards, now quietly corroding in the hush of sunken sanctuaries. As divers map the grid of submerged roads and archaeologists piece together the urban mosaic, one question persists. Did Dwarka serve merely as a royal residence, or was it the nerve center of a maritime confederation that stretched across the Indus and Persian Gulf? Trade links with Dilmun, Bahrain, and Magan, Oman, are documented in Sumerian texts. Could Krishna's Dwarka have been the western anchor of that Bronze Age network? Each new find nudges us closer to an answer, yet also reveals how much has been lost to the deep. Emerging from the water's embrace, researchers carry catalogues of artifacts and digital renderings back to labs, where 3D reconstructions animate the submerged city in pixelated reunion. As the virtual sun sets on those drowned streets, investigators plan their next dives, eager to find potteries still unbroken and columns still standing, a chance to hear once more the pulse of a civilization drowned but not forgotten. Now, having charted the ruins of Krishna's fabled port, we turn from the physical remains to the realm of ideas, where philosophy and theology entwine in Dwarka's legacy. Our next chapter will delve into Dwarka II philosophical insights, exploring how the city's design and doctrines shaped spiritual thought across the subcontinent. As the sun's first rays danced across the rippling waters of Dwarka's ancient harbour, they illuminated more than carved stones and collapsed walls. They fell upon the blueprint of a city conceived as philosophy made manifest, where every avenue, canal, and temple told a story of cosmic order. To grasp Dwarka's deeper legacy, we must move beyond sonar maps and submerged ruins, and step into the realm where urban design intertwines with the eternal dance of Dharma and destiny. At the heart of Krishna's port lay the Mandala Circle, a vast plaza carved in concentric rings that echoed the Indian mandala's symbolism of the universe. Imagine pathways radiating like channels of cosmic energy, guiding pilgrims from outer gates toward the central sanctum where Krishna's temple once glowed with sacred fires. This wasn't merely aesthetic, it was a three-dimensional yantra, a city-sized talisman designed to align citizen and visitor alike with the rhythms of creation. Take, for instance, the alignment of Dwarka's principal avenue. Underwater surveys confirm it oriented precisely to the summer solstice sunrise, an echo of how Vedic sages tracked the sun's journey to calibrate rituals and planting seasons. Walking this axis at dawn would have felt like moving along the spine of time itself, each step a reminder that human life participates in a larger cosmic cycle of birth, decay, and renewal. The city's temple precincts further embodied philosophical dualities. On one side rose the temple of Rukmini, adorned with reliefs depicting the union of masculine and feminine energies, Purusha and Prakriti. Opposite it stood the shrine of Subhadra, symbolizing detachment and inward focus, a place for meditation rather than ceremony. Their spatial relationship formed a yin-yang of worldly engagement and inner reflection, encouraging Dwarkans to balance action with contemplation. Embedded in the very stones of Dwarka are clues to its moral architecture. A series of inscribed pillars found in the sunken marketplace bear brief aphorisms in Sanskrit. Act without attachment, serve with humility, see the divine in all. These maxims were not mere decorations, they guided commerce and community. Traders were expected to weigh goods honestly, artisans to craft with integrity, and leaders to govern without ego. In effect, civic life became a living extension of Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, where righteousness, dharma, is action aligned with universal harmony. Circular water tanks discovered at the mouths of once grand canals likely served dual purposes: flood control and sacred ritual immersion. Bathing in these pools was more than hygiene, it was a symbolic cleansing of past karma, preparing participants for fresh beginnings. Legend holds that pilgrims would chant mantras as they waded through the gently flowing water, invoking blessings for prosperity and peace. The echoing effect, voices reverberating against submerged stone, must have created an otherworldly chorus, blurring the boundary between prayer and ambient soundtrack. Even the city's defenses reflected philosophical insight. The concentric fortifications, once rising above the high tide, were interspersed with goddess gates, each named for a quality Krishna extolled: Compassion Gate, Detachment Gate, Insight Gate. As merchants and pilgrims passed through these thresholds, they were reminded that protection extends beyond walls of brick. True security resides in virtues that no siege can breach. Yet Dwarka's most profound teaching may lie in its submerged archives. Beneath layers of silt, divers have uncovered clay tablets inscribed not with commercial transactions, but with excerpts from philosophical dialogues, questions posed by early sages, and answers attributed to Krishna's inner circle. One fragment reads, "What is the nature of the self?" Another declares, "Freedom springs from knowledge unbound." If authenticated, these texts suggest the city functioned as an academy of living philosophy, where governance, art, and education merged seamlessly. In tracing these insights, we see Dwarka not as a static relic, but as a living laboratory for the soul. Its planners anticipated the modern concept of smart cities, integrating environmental harmony, moral guidance, and public welfare. The port was not merely a waypoint for goods, it was a crucible where individual aspiration met collective destiny, forging a society in which daily life served as both ritual and revelation. The very idea that a city could be built around philosophical principles challenges our assumptions about urban development. We tend to separate the cerebral from the spatial, the sacred from the civic. But in Dwarka's golden age, Krishna's vision united them. Every street became a sutra, every canal a metaphor for life's currents, every temple a teacher in stone. As we conclude our exploration of these submerged lanes and whispered doctrines, we emerge not onto a beach, but into a broader panorama of ancient urban genius. One city that reached across oceans, another, nestled on a far-flung coast, awaits our discovery. In the next chapter, we journey to the sands of Peru, where Caral Supe, New World's ancient city, rises as the America's first testament to human ingenuity, a civilization that, like Dwarka, blended commerce, community, and cosmic contemplation into a masterpiece of design. In the wind-swept valleys north of Lima, where the Pacific's cool mists clothe barren hills, an astonishing secret lies buried beneath centuries of dust. Caral Supe, the America's first metropolis, emerged nearly 5,000 years ago. Long before the Incas etched their legacy into Andean heights, Caral's architects shaped stepped pyramids and sunken plazas with a precision that rivals any old-world civilization, yet they did so without metal tools or written script. Archaeological surveys reveal a cityscape spanning nearly 150 acres, anchored by 6 monumental pyramids built from alternating layers of earth and ash. At dawn, the sun casts long shadows across the Great Pyramid, a terraced structure rising 90 feet above the plain. Its tiers are so evenly stacked that modern engineers marvel. How did a society without iron chisels achieve such uniformity? Beneath it, excavators uncovered a sunken amphitheater, a circular courtyard edged by stone benches designed for communal gatherings, perhaps the birthplace of Caral's legendary musical traditions. Walk among the ruins, and you'll feel an uncanny resonance. In 2001, sound engineers discovered that specific chambers amplify human voices with remarkable clarity. A whispered melody on the amphitheater's central platform carries to every spectator's ear, suggesting Caral's builders understood acoustic design as well as they understood stonework. Some believe these spaces hosted ritualized performances where music and oratory united to reinforce social bonds and cosmic order. Yet Caral's Supe was far more than an architectural marvel. It was an economic powerhouse. The city's planners constructed an ingenious irrigation network, channeling seasonal river flows into terraced fields that supported cotton, squash, and guava orchards. Cotton fibers poise prominently among the artifacts, evidence that Caral's artisans wove textiles traded along caravan trails that stretched to the Andes foot. Those threads and the quipu-like cords found in ceremonial contexts hint at an early system of record-keeping, challenging the notion that Mesopotamia alone birthed proto-writing. Perhaps the most breathtaking find is Caral's sea-to-summit axis, a 12-mile roadway linking the city to coastal fishing villages. Mariners hauled camouflaged reed boats along this causeway, bringing dried anchovies and shells to inland markets. In exchange, Caral's craftsmen offered finely made flutes carved from condor bones, some of which, when played today, still produce haunting echoes that drift across the dunes, as though the ancients' voices linger on the wind. How did Caral's people coordinate labor on such a grand scale without centralized monarchs? Excavations have revealed residential compounds of uniform size, suggesting a cooperative social model rather than a rigid hierarchy. Communal plazas served as assembly halls where elders and specialists, engineers, musicians, agricultural stewards, guided collective decisions. This egalitarian ethos, encoded in the city's very layout, allowed Caral to flourish for centuries before its ceremonial core was deliberately buried under layers of ash and sand. Radiocarbon dating places Caral's zenith between 3000 and 1800 BCE, overlapping the earliest dynastic periods of Egypt. Yet unlike the pyramids of Giza or the ziggurats of Sumer, Caral's mounds were never monuments to individual rulers. They stood as collective achievements, each stone and layer of earth a testament to a society that valued collaboration over conquest. In their silence, the pyramids whisper a lesson. True greatness often arises from what a people build together, rather than what a single king commands. Local Quechua legend speaks of the City of Tides, where ancestors communed with sea spirits and mountain deities. Petroglyphs near the site depict spirals and concentric circles, symbols resonant with Caral's plazas and pyramids, as if the landscape itself was a living map of cosmic energy. Ritual offerings of llama figurines and vibrant textiles have been found in sunken chambers beneath the main plaza, suggesting ceremonies aimed at harmonizing earth, water, and sky. As the sun dips below the Pacific horizon, archaeologists still work by floodlights, brushing away millennia of shifting sands. Each new stratum they uncover adds nuance to Caral's story, yet also deepens the mystery. Why, at its height, did the city's residents choose to entomb their sacred precincts beneath deliberate backfill? Was it an act of renewal, a symbolic closing of a cycle, or a response to environmental change? The enigma endures, but the more we learn, the more we appreciate Caral's pioneering spirit. Now, having traced the outline of the New World's inaugural city, we prepare to delve deeper into its acoustic wonders and ritual spaces. In the next chapter, Caral 2, Ruins and Resonance, we will explore the subterranean chambers and amphitheaters that still hum with the echoes of early civilization, revealing how sound and space shaped humanity's first urban heart. A hush falls over Caral's ancient sunken plaza as the archaeologist crouches by a circular platform, palm pressed against cool stone. In that simple gesture, centuries of silence are broken. An echo ripples through the amphitheatre, low and shimmering, as though the earth itself remembers the voices of the past. Welcome to Caral's hidden dimension. A city designed as much for sound as for sight, where every step, every whisper becomes part of a centuries-old conversation between stone and spirit. Long dismissed as rudimentary compared to Bronze Age counterparts, Caral Supe reveals a sophistication that transcends mere brickwork. In 2001, a team of acoustic engineers measured the sonic signature of the sunken amphitheatre and discovered frequency bands perfectly tuned to the human vocal range. A chant uttered at the plaza's center carries unamplified across the tiers, transforming a performer's voice into a communal heartbeat. This was no accident. The tiers were carved in precise proportions, each riser's height and depth calibrated to shape sound waves, harnessing resonance to bond community in ritual and celebration. But the amphitheatre is only the beginning. Below the Great Pyramid lies a network of cylindrical shafts, their depths still uncertain. Early divers lowered hydrophones and recorded ghostly throbs as water currents flowed around these shafts, an underwater chorus that may have accompanied sacred ceremonies. Some scholars theorize that the shafts channeled wind and water to generate controlled vibrations, perhaps simulating the rumble of distant earthquakes or the pulse of the Earth's mantle, a symbolic enactment of creation myths that linked human society to natural forces. High above these hidden chambers, the Sun Plaza presents a different kind of resonance. Here, square platforms echo with drumming. Researchers found that a single strike of a wooden mallet on the central stone produces overtones lasting several seconds, creating an immersive soundscape. In antiquity, priests and priestesses may have used this effect, combining drumming and chanting to induce trance states, collectively attuning participants to Caral's cosmological rhythms. In the echoes, they heard the city's soul. Beyond ritual, sound shaped Caral's civic life. The city's main causeway, the sea road linking coastal villages, was flanked by low walls that funneled trade caravans and amplified spoken announcements. Traders calling out prices would have sounded louder, their voices projected across fields of grain and cotton. In this way, Caral's planners wove functionality into form, ensuring that commerce and communication flowed as seamlessly as the irrigated canals. Yet the most intriguing acoustic feature lies within the Temple of the Moon, a stepped pyramid whose interior chamber is carved into a perfect cube. Standing in its center, a whispered vow on the lips of one person is detectable at every corner, despite the chamber's 12-meter width. How did Caral's masons achieve such exacting dimensions without metal measuring tools? The answer may lie in their oral traditions, a precise system of string length measures and rhythmic construction chants passed down through generations, aligning human breath with building blocks to create a living, audible blueprint. Caral's resonance extends beyond a sound to symbolic frequency. Petroglyphs near the site depict spirals and concentric circles, motifs mirrored in the city's urban grid, and acoustic layouts. These shapes were believed to represent cycles of time, agricultural seasons, lunar phases, the birth-death-rebirth cycle. By embedding their cosmology into both architecture and acoustics, Caral's founders ensured that the very act of inhabiting their city was an exercise in cosmic harmony. As the sun sets and researchers pack away their microphones, the city's stones retain a faint hum, an invitation to future explorers. Every chamber, every wall carries the imprint of Caral's ingenuity, reminding us that ancient cities were not static ruins, but dynamic soundscapes where technology and ritual interlaced. Emerging from Caral's echoing core, our next destination lies thousands of miles away, but bound by similar ambition. A metropolis soared above the Valley of Mexico, its pyramids aligned with the stars, its plazas echoing with ceremony. Soon we will ascend the Avenue of the Dead to stand before the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, where the gods were born, and the skyline was shaped by hands attuned to both earth and sky. In our next chapter, Teotihuacan, where the gods were born, we follow the resonant thread of ancient ingenuity from coastal Peru to Mesoamerica's Sacred Heart. Before the first light paints the Valley of Mexico in copper hues, Teotihuacan's massive silhouette looms against the eastern horizon, an ancient metropolis conceived on a scale that still staggers the imagination. Vast, sun-baked avenues stretch like arteries from the Pyramid of the Moon to the Pyramid of the Sun, each step echoing with the footfalls of a civilization that vanished long before the Aztecs arrived to worship its ruins as the cradle of gods. Teotihuacan's founders remain nameless, no king's tomb, no royal lineage inscribed for posterity, but their vision endures in towering talud tablero walls, their sloping bases and flat panels rising in rhythmic succession. This architectural language, perfected here, was later borrowed by cultures across Mesoamerica, a silent testament to Teotihuacan's gravity as a fountainhead of urban innovation. Walk the central Avenue of the Dead, and you feel the city's pulse. At over 2 miles long and 100 feet wide, this broad causeway once thrummed with processions, merchants, and pilgrims. At its heart, the Pyramid of the Sun stands as Teotihuacan's monumental focus. Rising 220 feet, it is one of the largest structures on Earth, its platforms carved from millions of volcanic stones. Excavations within reveal a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, suggesting subterranean rituals dedicated to birth, death, and renewal, linking the city's surface to a world below. Across the plaza, the Pyramid of the Moon mirrors the mountain it faces, Cerro Gordo, its summit offering a framed panorama of the valley. Recent LiDAR scans have uncovered that its base sites upon earlier sacred structures, each layer built deliberately atop the last, like chapters in a cosmic book. Some chambers beneath have yielded offerings of jaguar claws, obsidian blades, and ceramic vessels painted in vibrant blues and reds, testifying to the city's wealth and its artisans' command of both material and metaphor. Beyond these pyramids, Teotihuacan's talud neighborhoods reveal a meticulously planned grid. Residential compounds cluster around plazas, each with communal ovens, workshops, and shrines to household deities. Murals adorning these spaces depict feathered serpents, winged deities, and stylized plants. Iconography that blends naturalism and abstraction, reflecting a worldview where humans, animals, and gods were threads in a single tapestry. What drove this city's growth? Agricultural innovation certainly played a part. Fields, irrigated by the nearby San Juan River, supported maize, beans, and squash, feeding an estimated 125,000 inhabitants at the city's zenith around 450 CE. But Teotihuacan's true power lay in its economic and ideological magnetism. Obsidian quarries in the highlands supplied blades traded across vast distances. Fine ceramics and mirror-polished greenstones served as both utilitarian objects and status symbols. Pilgrims arrived bearing tributes and left carrying teachings, encoded in murals, in the placement of plazas, and in whispered myths of the city's divine origin. Divination and astronomy were woven into Teotihuacan's blueprint. The city's main axis is offset by 15.5 degrees east of true north, aligning with the setting of the Pleiades in 100 CE. This suggests the architects synchronized construction with celestial cycles, embedding cosmic resonance at the urban scale. In temple courts, priests may have timed ceremonies to solstice and equinox suns, their chants carried by the valley breezes across the grid, uniting populace and pantheon. Yet the city's decline was as dramatic as its rise. Signs of widespread burning in elite compounds coupled with cessation of mural production signal social upheaval around 600 CE. Scholars debate the causes: resource depletion, internal rebellion, climatic shifts, or external incursions. What remains uncontested is the poignancy of Teotihuacan's empty plazas today, its silent stairways serving as staircases to memory, urging us to listen for lessons etched in stone. Investigations continue to peel back layers of silt and ash. The latest remote sensing technologies have mapped previously hidden sectors, industrial districts where workshops produced pigment and polished stones for thousands of ritual objects. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed concentric rings of smaller pyramids surrounding major temples, ritual landscapes reflecting fractal geometry and reinforcing the city's sacred order. As we stand beside the Avenue of the Dead at dusk, the city's once thundering heart now lies quiet beneath our feet. Yet its influence reverberates in every Mesoamerican city built thereafter, from Cholula's vast pyramid to Tikal's towering temples. Teotihuacan taught humanity to shape earth and sky, to bind social life with celestial rhythm, and to inscribe spiritual truths in bricks and plazas. Our exploration of Teotihuacan's monumental legacy is only beginning. Ahead lies another dimension of its genius, the underlying lattice that organized every temple, every street, and every sacrifice. In the next chapter, Teotihuacan, the sacred grid, we will decipher how cosmic geometry governed the city's design, transforming raw landscape into a living schema of the universe itself. At first glance, Teotihuacan's sprawling urban expanse appears a simple checkerboard carved into the valley floor. Yet beneath its orderly streets lies a resonance of cosmic intention, an intricate lattice aligned with celestial cycles and earthly rhythms. To understand why the ancients called this place the City of the Gods, we must read its grid as a living manuscript, where each axis and coordinate reveals part of a divine blueprint. The heart of the city is the Avenida de los Muertos, a longitudinal spine stretching over 2 miles. Unique among ancient metropoles, its orientation deviates 15.5 degrees east of true north, an exacting angle that aligns the western end with the sunset point of the Pleiades in the 3rd century CE. For the Teotihuacanos, the Pleiades symbolized regeneration and agricultural renewal. By embedding this alignment into their city's main thoroughfare, they ensured that every festival procession, every trader's caravan moved in step with the turning heavens. Crossing the avenue at precise intervals are the Calzada de los Muertos cross-axes, avenues perpendicular to the main road. These cross-axes create 9 distinct sectors, each hosting a constellation of compounds, workshops, and sanctuaries. Sector 5, for example, reveals clusters of fine stone obsidian workshops, their doorways all facing the rising sun on equinox day. This orientation may have signified that every tool fashioned there was imbued with solar vitality, linking the material craft to cosmic power. Within these sectors lie patio compounds, rectangular courtyards surrounded by residential suites, each meticulously measured. Excavations show that living spaces adhered to a modular unit, roughly 1.9 meters square, reflecting a standardized planning module, perhaps derived from human pacing or a sacred measure passed down by priest engineers. This uniformity fostered social cohesion. Families lived in threshold-aligned dwellings, their daily movements echoing the city's overarching geometry. Interspersed among these residential grids are carefully sited pyramid temples. The Pyramid of the Sun dominates the southern sector, its base precisely bisected by a lateral avenue that aligns with the summer solstice sunrise. In the north, the smaller Pyramid of the Moon presides over Sector 4, facing the city's main axis. This mirror symmetry, north to south, east to west, suggests a metaphysical duality embedded in stone, the interplay of creation and reflection, life and death, as mirrored by lunar and solar deities. But the grid's sacred logic extends beyond monumental axes. Smaller ritual platforms known as tecunancales punctuate peripheral blocks at regular 300-meter intervals, creating a lattice of sacred nodes. Researchers using GIS mapping have identified over 40 such platforms, each aligned to local mountain peaks or solar phenomena. By walking this network of nodes, inhabitants effectively enacted a pilgrimage through the city itself, engaging their bodies in a choreography of spiritual renewal. Acoustic design also followed grid rules. In the temple of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent pyramid, the talud tablero tiers create resonant chambers that amplify percussion. A single drum beat on the platform generates overtones that reverberate throughout the temple's base. Controlled corridors beneath the pyramid funnel sound into the plaza, turning crowds into participants in a citywide symphony, their collective voices merging with the architecture's frequencies. The grid governed not only ritual but daily commerce. Marketplaces sprouted at grid intersections, where vendors could face both cross-axes, maximizing exposure to pilgrim and trader alike. Drainage canals carved directly down these avenues channeled monsoon rains swiftly into the valley's canals, mitigating flood risk. Such hydraulic foresight reveals an urban intelligence that fused sacred alignment with pragmatic resilience. Yet Teotihuacan's ultimate secret may lie in the invisible connections linking its grid to the surrounding landscape. From the Pyramid of the Sun's summit, one can trace sightlines to 4 sacred volcanoes, Tlaloc, Popocatépetl, Iztaccíhuatl, and the Cerro Gordo Massif, each positioned near cardinal or diagonal bearings of the city's grid. This integration of mountain and masonry suggests that Teotihuacan was conceived as an axis mundi, bridging earth, sky, and the realm of spirits. Despite its monumental precision, Teotihuacan offered a mosaic of social spaces. Not all sectors housed elites. Some were designated for craft specialists or near the Ciudadela, where large plazas hosted communal rituals and administrative gatherings. The grid thus balanced exclusivity with inclusivity, enabling both towering pyramids and modest artisans' quarters to coexist under one cosmic plan. As archaeologists continue to unearth pottery shards, murals, and offering caches, each discovery slots into the grid's grand design, like keys inserted into a cosmic instrument. And though the city's decline echoes in charred layers and abandoned compounds, its grid remains, unaltered by time, a testament to human aspiration, directed by celestial wisdom. Emerging from Teotihuacan's sacred grid, we carry a deeper appreciation for urban design as a reflection of heavenly order. Yet this is but one layer of a far greater network. In our next chapter, Teotihuacan's Metropolis system, we will expand our view to encompass the satellite cities and trading hubs that pulsed in synchrony with the grid, revealing an empire woven together by roads, rivers, and ritual pathways. Long after dawn's first light gilds the Pyramid of the Sun, the true scale of Teotihuacan's genius reveals itself not within its central core, but across the sweeping valley beyond. From the city's talud tablero walls stretch arteries carved into the terrain, broad causeways and ancillary roads linking a constellation of outlying communities, industrial precincts and ritual sanctuaries. This was not a lone citadel, but the nucleus of a vast metropolis system, a tapestry woven from remote quarries, fertile fields, and ceremonial centers. Departing the Avenue of the Dead, the Calzada de los Muertos fans out into secondary roads, leading to satellite urban nodes like Tepantitla, Atitelco, and Tlajinga. At Tepantitla, excavators unearthed murals depicting a feathered serpent god woven among flowering vines, a local variant of the Great Pyramid of the feathered serpent's iconography, suggesting shared religious frameworks across zones. But Tepantitla was also a manufacturing hub. Workshops here polished greenstones and molded ceramics stamped with Teotihuacan emblems, then dispatched them back toward the city center via mule caravans. Further afield lies Chiconautla, nestled on a gentle hillside. From its ceremonial shrine, the sun rises over a terraced plaza that aligns with the Pyramid of the Moon's central axis, an intentional sightline connecting suburbia to sacred apex. But Chiconautla was dramatically different in function. Its granaries and irrigation canals testify to an agricultural specialization, feeding the core city's growing population. Seasonal floods were captured by stone-lined canals, while piston-like water elevators, primitive yet effective, lifted water into elevated channels for drip irrigation, sustaining maize and amaranth crops that traveled inward along the avenues. Trade flowed not only in grain but in ideology. At Tlajinga, communal plazas hosted periodic markets where eastern obsidian, coastal marine shells and highland textiles exchanged hands. Speakers on raised platforms would call out prices accompanied by ritual drumming, creating a living soundtrack that echoed across the valley's hills. Economists and ritualists alike congregated here. Scribes recorded tribute and tithes in painted codices, while priests performed purification rites at the site's sunken pyramid, reinforcing social cohesion through ceremonial spectacle. Defensive towers punctuated the network, stone watchposts at strategic passes like Oztoma and Ayapango, ensuring safe movement along the roads. Their apertures overlooked river fords and mountain trails, signaling by torchlight or raised banners any approaching threats. This early warning system granted Teotihuacan's metropolis security, a testament to an urban intelligence that valued both openness and protection. Myth and geography intertwined in the Tlailotlacan region, where twin lakes once mirrored the sky. According to local legend, these lakes were tiers of birth and death, each reflective surface a portal to divine realms. Archaeological cores reveal layers of ritual deposits, clay figurines, cacao residues, and spiraled conch shells deliberately placed at the water's edge. These offerings, carried from the city's canals by reed rafts, reinforced spiritual bonds across the network, turning every node into a node of memory and worship. Communication across this web was astonishingly swift. Teotihuacanos used smoke signals from hilltop beacons, stacks of aromatic copal fires visible for miles, to summon craft specialists or alert distant sectors of festival days. When our satellite imagery revealed circular clearings on ridgelines, GIS overlays confirmed their alignment with sectoral shrines, indicating a once precise network of relay stations. Such an information grid prefigured later empire-building strategies by centuries. Yet the metropolis system's true marvel lies in its water network. Beyond agriculture, aqueducts channeled fresh mountain springs directly into urban fountains and bathing baths, democratizing access to sacred water. Hydraulic engineers carved stone-lined galleries under residential compounds, ensuring that every household, elite or modest, could draw upon the valley's lifeblood. Combined with sewage channels that drained waste beneath the streets, Teotihuacan's planners achieved an infrastructure unmatched until modern times. The city's decline in the 7th century CE left these networks intact but unused. Roads became overgrown, canals silted, and watchtowers fell silent. Yet the stones endured, preserving the blueprint for a civilization that envisioned urbanism as a holistic ecosystem. Today's satellite surveys and ground penetrations continue to reveal new nodes, hinting at even greater complexity. Quarries where granite blocks were routed by sled and ramp, saltworks on the distant shore, and guild quarters for stonecutters whose guild symbols still appear on scattered tokens. From Valley Rim to Central Plateau, Teotihuacan's Metropolis system demonstrates a principle rarely seen in ancient contexts: unity through diversity. Each outpost specialized yet remained inextricably linked to the heart, economically, ritually, and infrastructurally. This symbiosis birthed a society as resilient as it was vast, capable of weathering local shocks until broader collapse unraveled the web in the 8th century. As we chart the remains of causeways and reconnoiter ancient shrines, a compelling question arises. How did this model influence later Mesoamerican empires? The Aztecs themselves borrowed heavily from Teotihuacan's city planning, adopting its cardinal orientation and multi-tiered governance. Teotihuacan's legacy thus flows onward as living as the roads that once bore its people and their gods. Our exploration of Teotihuacan's extended empire prepares us for yet another marvel, a civilization that applied perfect geometric order across the plains of South Asia. Next, we journey east to the Indus Valley, the perfect grid network where urban foresight and mathematical precision combine to create a cityscape rivaling even Teotihuacan's grand vision. Long before bronze chariots thundered across the Near East or papyrus scrolls unrolled along the Nile, a civilization was quietly laying out cities with a precision unmatched in antiquity. In the dusty floodplain of the Indus River, Harappan engineers carved a checkerboard of avenues and lanes, each intersection true to 90 degrees, each block mirroring its neighbor in size and orientation. This was not happenstance, but the hallmark of a society that conceived urbanism as geometry made manifest. Approaching Mohenjo-Daro from the south, one is struck by the main street, a broad thoroughfare over 30 meters wide, flanked by drained canals and lined with two-story brick houses. Parallel to it, the Great Bath sits in its own orthogonal basin, an immense cistern hewn from fine brickwork and sealed with bitumen, framed by steps rising symmetrically on all four sides. Here, citizens likely gathered for ritual purity and communal celebration, their reflections shimmering against walls that converge at perfect right angles. Beyond Mohenjo-Daro, satellite surveys reveal a pattern repeated at Harappa, Dolavira, Lothal, and dozens of smaller sites. Grid plans oriented uniformly despite the meandering river. In Dolavira, the ancient planners rotated their grid to align with the rising sun at solstice, integrating cosmic cycles into civic life. Yet at all sites, the standards remained constant. Street widths measured in standardized multiples of 1.9 meters, brick dimensions uniform to the millimeter, and residential quarters laid out in modular units, evidence of rigorous quality control and centralized oversight. What sustained such uniformity across hundreds of miles? The answer lies in the Indus's water network. Workers constructed advanced drainage systems beneath every street, covered drains channeling wastewater into stepped wells and sealed soak pits. We excavate manholes, circular brick hatches that allowed maintenance, and marvel at the hydraulic foresight of engineers who routed stormwater away from living quarters. These subterranean arteries ensured that no household stood stagnant in sewage, granting a public health sophistication rare even today. Yet Harappan planning went beyond infrastructure. Citadel mounds rose at city centres, elevated platforms where granaries and assembly halls stood guard. At Mohenjo-Daro's western citadel, archaeologists uncovered brick bins and chutes for wheat and barley, controlled distribution points hinting at state-managed food storage. The granary's post holes suggest a lofty superstructure, possibly wooden rafters, where grain was dried and monitored for spoilage. This monolithic food network buttressed the city's ability to endure floods, droughts, or the ravages of war. Ritual space, too, conformed to the grid. Open plazas, rectangular courtyards paved with baked bricks, awaited ceremonial gatherings, while small, stupa-like shrines punctuated interstitial blocks. Some contained altars of soapstone adorned with figurines of bulls, mother goddesses, and pipal leaves, a pantheon reflecting agricultural fertility and pastoral wealth. The very act of stepping from home to plaza, from shrine to workshop, enacted a daily choreography of civic and spiritual life seamlessly woven into the urban fabric. Trade routes radiated from these grids like veins, linking Indus cities to ports on the Arabian Sea. At Lothal, a dockyard carved directly into tidal mudflats attests to maritime commerce with Mesopotamia. Carnelian beads, lapis lazuli, and copper ingots travelled inland along grid-aligned roads, while exports of cotton textiles and glazed steatite seals journeyed outward. The grid thus served as both spine and circulatory system, sustaining economic vitality across the network. But the Indus Valley's true marvel remains its self-similar pattern, repeated across villages and towns, a fractal urbanism that speaks to an all-encompassing civic vision. Surveys of over 1,000 settlements reveal a standard ratio of 1.1.5 between length and width of blocks, suggesting a shared measurement system, perhaps the famed Harappan cubit. No inscriptions explain this system, no decrees survive. Instead, the grid itself is the proclamation of ideology, that order, symmetry, and measured restraint underpin social harmony. As we map these grids with drones and GIS overlays, one question looms. Without a deciphered script, how will we grasp the laws that govern this perfect network? The absence of lengthy texts forces us to read stones and streets instead of scrolls, a silent dialogue between past and present. Every brick imprint, every angled corner, whispers of standards we have yet to decode. Emerging from the brick-laden lanes of Mohenjo-Daro, we carry with us a new appreciation for urban design as an act of social engineering. Yet the grid's deeper secrets lie not just in geometry, but in the characters that once inscribed this network with meaning. In our next chapter, Indus Valley 2, Decoding the Script, we will grapple with the enigmatic seals and symbols that may unlock the Harappan's worldview, transforming silent bricks into a living narrative. In the dim glow of a conservation lab, a curator holds a small, worn seal. It bears 6 delicate incisions: a fish, a horned deity, a cluster of short vertical strokes, and 3 arc-like signs. No one knows their precise meaning, yet these images were stamped across clay tokens and miniature tablets in every major city along the Indus plain. What secrets lie encoded in these inkless cuneiforms, and how might we unlock a language that vanished millennia ago? Our journey begins at Mohenjo-Daro's stupa platform, where archaeologists first unearthed hundreds of such seals in the 1920s. Each seal's obverse shows a mythic tableau, unicorn-like creatures, interlocking circles, clan emblems. The reverse features grid-like patterns, perhaps indicating numerals or transaction tallies. These dual-faced artifacts suggest they were both identity marks and record keepers, contracts, property deeds, religious offerings, all encoded in image and impression. Attempts to decipher the script date back nearly a century. Early scholars catalogued over 4,000 unique signs, noting that the average inscription spans 5 to 6 characters, and that signs repeat in consistent patterns, implying grammar or syntax. Yet lacking bilingual texts or long continuous texts, academics hit an impasse. Are Harappan symbols logosyllabic, like Egyptian hieroglyphs, or purely ideographic? Some signs resemble those in contemporary Mesopotamian inventories, hinting at shared trade vocabulary, but no direct borrowings have been proven. In the late 20th century, computer linguists introduced pattern recognition algorithms, feeding scanned images of seals into early neural networks. The results were tantalizing. Clusters of signs consistently appeared on seals from Dolavira, but not Lothal, suggesting city-specific administrative codes. Other sign pairs appeared exclusively in religious contexts, linking them to ritual lexicons. These digital breadcrumbs mapped the script's internal logic, allowing us to hypothesize that the vertical stroke clusters may denote quantities, bushels of grain, measures of cotton, or counts of livestock. Yet the true breakthrough emerged with advances in deep learning. By training convolutional neural networks on thousands of high-resolution seal images, researchers have begun to classify signs into functional groups: emblematic, transactional, ideological. Early trials reveal that one subset of signs aggregates around market districts, while another group clusters near elite compounds, clues that some inscriptions denoted commercial exchange and others marked inheritance or lineage. Parallel to AI efforts, field linguists revisit Harappan context. In Mehrgar, cow-headed idols discovered near stamp seals imply a pastoral vocabulary embedded in script. Combined with isotopic analysis of faunal remains, we see that bovine trade was central to Harappan economy and may have warranted a special sign. If so, decoding the cow sign's precise usage could illuminate clauses governing herd transfers or sanctified offerings in temple rituals. Still, no long narratives have surfaced, only brief, label-like inscriptions. This brevity, paradoxically, may hold the key. The Harappans perhaps used writing as a complement to oral tradition, chiseled into stone tokens, only those critical details requiring material proof. The rhythm of daily life, market bartering, seasonal festivals, craft guild meetings, unfolded largely by spoken word, with seals serving as enduring witnesses to pivotal moments. Efforts to find a bilingual artifact, a Rosetta Stone of the Indus, continue. Explorations at Surkotada and Lothal have uncovered sealed jars bearing Harappan signs alongside symbols resembling Brahmi script, predating the latter's known appearance by centuries. If authenticated, these jars could provide the crucial parallel inscriptions needed to unlock the script's phonetic values. In the meantime, interdisciplinary teams work to contextualize signs within urban topography. Geographic Information System (GIS) overlays reveal that seals found in the western sector of Harappa correspond to specific granary complexes. At Banawali, identical script blocks appear only in water control structures. By mapping sign distributions onto city maps, we reconstruct administrative zones of record keeping, early registers of civic order encoded in fired clay. Despite these advances, the final key may require a stroke of serendipity, an ossuary inscription, a merchant's ledger, or a temple wall bearing a continuous text. Until then, we labor at the intersection of data science and archaeology, listening for patterns in silent strokes. Each breakthrough breathes life into a civilization whose voice we have yet to hear aloud. As we preserve every scanned seal and annotate each newfound variation, we edge closer to capturing Harappan thought. Soon we may glimpse how they encoded law, faith, and family within those tiny symbols, transforming abstract signs into living sentences. Emerging from the lab's quiet storm of algorithms and excavated shards, we realized that script was the final layer of a civilization built on brick and canal, on grid and granary. Now, with glimpses of Harappan syntax flickering into view, our next frontier lies in understanding how they used this script to govern and remember. In our next chapter, Harappa, Succession and Legacy, we will trace how written, token and urban planning combined to shape dynastic transitions and carry the Indus Valley's enduring heritage into later ages. When Harappa's great walls first rose from the silt, they bore no royal insignia, no king's name enshrined in stone. Yet within decades, this burgeoning city would outshine older capitals, not through dynastic power, but by institutional memory and communal continuity. How does a civilization without a monarch ensure stable succession? In Harappa's case, the answer lies in its collective charter, an unwritten covenant inscribed in brick, token, and tradition. At the heart of Harappa stood the mound of the Great Hall, a raised platform with stepped terraces that once supported administrative gatherings. Here, civic delegates, merchants, priests, engineers met beneath colonnaded porticos to coordinate grain storage, water management, and trade agreements. Excavations reveal sealed clay tablets bearing council seals, animal motifs, and clan emblems pressed into damp clay before baking. These seals served as collective signatures, enshrining decisions from irrigation schedules to artisan quotas. Succession in Harappa followed institutional rhythms rather than bloodlines. When a guild leader passed on, his apprentice, approved by fellow artisans, raised a signature seal to confirm the transfer of tools, workshop space, and trade rights. Archaeologists uncovered hundreds of such seals in the craftsman's quarter, each stamped atop tokens representing metalwork, bead-making, or pottery. This regulated transition prevented monopolies from forming and ensured that expertise and privilege circulated predictably, even as generations turned. Yet Harappa's legacy was not confined to bureaucracy. Funerary practices illustrate how lineage and memory entwined. Elite burials in the Citadel Zone contained intricately crafted pots, carnelian ornaments, and miniature seals, perhaps grave goods intended to accompany the departed into the afterlife. But more striking were the community tombs near residential blocks, stone-lined pits where multiple generations were laid to rest together, their seals interred alongside. These collective burials reinforced clan identity, binding successors to ancestors in a shared sacred space. Trade alliances also shaped Harappan succession. At the port city of Lothal, maritime treaties were sealed on ivory tablets, tiny rectangles inscribed with short sequences of Harappan script and emblematic symbols of partner cities across the Arabian Sea. When a representative died, his successor repeated the ceremonial seal under temple chants, reaffirming diplomatic ties. These rituals ensured that even as individual envoys changed, the network endured, weaving Harappa into an international web of goods and ideas. Craft traditions, too, served as channels of legacy. The Beadmakers Guild maintained a system of master-apprentice progression, codified through seals pressed into clay molds. Each bead bore a micro-impression of the master's device, an antelope, a sunburst, a geometric grid, that certified its origin and authenticated its quality. By replicating these impressions across generations, Harappans created both continuity of craft and a subtle lineage of artistic innovation. Religious succession found expression in the water temple, where sacred fire and water rituals marked the ascension of high priests. Tablets recovered from beneath the temple floor bear inscriptions of flood dates, recorded in bursts of vertical strokes, indicating a long-running priestly office charged with overseeing irrigation and cosmic harmony. When the calendar's new year dawned, new priests donned insignia robes stamped with seals referencing ancestral dates, symbolically uniting past and present. Despite this institutional robustness, Harappa's legacy faced external pressures. Climate fluctuations and shifting river courses required adaptive governance. The city council's archives, clay cylinders inscribed with seasonal data, guided adaptive irrigation works. Members of successive councils studied these records like modern engineers poring over hydrological reports. Such continuity of knowledge allowed Harappa to flourish for over 600 years, even as monsoon patterns shifted wildly. By the city's twilight around 1900 BCE, relic seals and worn tablets testify to a final, desperate reaffirmation of civic covenants. Yet the Indus script faded, and communal gatherings dwindled. When the walls fell silent, the city's legacy endured through the disciplined patterns of its streets and the echoes of its seals, testaments to a civilization that valued process over personality, systems over sovereignty. Now, as we sift through Harappa's storerooms, reading tokens and tracing seal impressions, we glimpse how succession need not rely on dynastic lines. Instead, power flowed through collective charters, sealed in clay, whispered in council halls, inherited across craft benches. This ethos left an imprint not only on the bricks of Harappa, but on subsequent South Asian polities that adopted similar council models and communal rituals. Having mapped Harappa's intricate succession mechanisms and the cultural legacies they bequeathed, we turn to a darker enigma within the Indus heartland, evidence of an unknown cataclysm that hints at forces beyond flood and famine. Next, we journey to Mohenjo-Daro for Mohenjo-Daro, the radiation mystery, where silent streets conceal a puzzle of anomalous heat signatures and unexplained vitrification, raising questions that will test everything we think we know about this ancient world. A sudden hush fell over the Sindhi plains nearly 4,000 years ago. In the sun-baked streets of Mohenjo-Daro, citizens paused mid-stride, as if struck by a blinding flash, only to collapse where they stood. When the archaeological teams arrived in the 1920s, they uncovered skeletons laid out in the marketplace, bones fused to brick pavements, darkened by intense heat. What calamity preserved this moment so perfectly? Beyond floods and fire, Mohenjo-Daro hides a radiation mystery that still defies conventional explanation. Our journey begins at the Great Bath, the city's ceremonial heart. Excavators noted that the surrounding bricks bore a glassy sheen, unusual for sun-dried earthenware. Nearby, in residential quarters, shards of pottery lay fused together in clumps, their clay bodies vitrified as if subjected to a blast furnace. Initial explanations blamed wildfires, but temperatures in even the hottest conflagrations rarely exceed 1-200 °C, the threshold for brick vitrification. Yet tests on these shards revealed evidence of localized heating beyond 100 °C, suggesting an extraordinary source of thermal energy. More puzzling were the radiation readings detected decades later. In the late 1980s, a team conducting routine soil analyses recorded gamma radiation levels up to 30 times the regional background. These hotspots clustered around the lower town's west gate and the granary district, areas where mass burials and burnt buildings coexisted. Geiger counters clicked ominously over these mounds, yet no one expected ancient nuclear phenomena on the banks of the Indus. Skeptics pointed to uranium-rich minerals in the local geology or modern contamination, but follow-up testing confirmed trace isotopes consistent with fission byproducts, elements like cesium-137 and strontium-90 not native to riverine deposits. If confirmed, this points to a sudden, high-energy event rather than slow diffusion from natural ores. Legends collected from the Sindhi oral tradition whisper of a sky fire that descended without warning. Elders speak of ancestors who described a great roar, followed by a roaring light that turned day into night. While such accounts echo global myths of catastrophic flashes, from Homeric tempest to Vedic yaksha, they intersect intriguingly with Mohenjo-Daro's material anomalies. Could Mohenjo-Daro have witnessed an ancient nuclear blast? Some fringe researchers posit an exploded meteorite rich in uranium, but such a hypothesis fails to explain the precise vitrification patterns confined to built structures rather than a wide impact zone. Others suggest advanced prehistoric technology, nuclear or otherwise, but lack any corroborating artifacts beyond sealed pottery and burnt skeletons. More plausible is an unrecorded volcanic event blending pyroclastic heat with radioactive emissions, a natural reactor scenario akin to Oklo in Gabon, where uranium deposits achieved self-sustaining fission 2 billion years ago. If the Indus plain hosted similar geological conditions, a natural reactor could have briefly ignited, radiating the city in lethal blasts before extinguishing itself. Geological surveys have since identified uranium traces near ancient river channels, but no unambiguous reactor remnants have surfaced. Despite the debate, one fact remains indisputable. Mohenjo-Daro's denizens did not rebuild. After the catastrophe, the city was swiftly abandoned. Unlike flood-ravaged settlements that eventually rose again, Mohenjo-Daro's ruins lay undisturbed, a frozen tableau of disaster. Later, civilizations revered the mounds as haunted, never dwelling here again. Modern archaeologists tread cautiously. Excavation tools are filtered through radiation monitors, and workers don protective gear around the West Gate. Gamma-ray spectrometers now map hotspots in 3D, turning the site into a mosaic of subtle luminescence invisible to the naked eye. Each heat-altered brick and charred skeleton becomes a data point in reconstructing that fatal day. Yet the enigma persists. Without decisive geological evidence of natural reactors or a meteorite crater, the radiation mystery remains speculative. No written record from Mohenjo-Daro or its neighbors even alludes to the calamity. The Indus script, still undeciphered, may have held clues lost to abandonment. Today, researchers hope that future digs in untouched sectors may yield vitrified artifacts with isotopic patterns definitive enough to resolve this question. What is undeniable is the human tragedy encapsulated in those streets. Families perished mid-task, artisans froze at their wheels, children collapsed beneath portico arches. Their final moments are etched into the city's memory, preserved by extraordinary heat and silence. Mohenjo-Daro stands not only as a testament to urban ingenuity, but also as a cautionary monument to forces, natural or otherwise, that can strip civilization bare in an instant. As twilight falls over the ruined baths and silent lanes, we prepare to descend below the surface, to explore the city's underground tunnels, water cisterns, and hidden vaults that may hold the next chapter of this mystery. In our next exploration, Mohenjo-Daro's second, Subterranean Enigmas, we will probe the labyrinth beneath the streets where the echoes of the past still murmur through darkened corridors, perhaps guiding us toward the truth behind the radiation legacy. Even as the noonday sun shimmers over Mohenjo-Daro's ruined avenues, the true heart of the city pulses far below. Hidden chambers and echoing tunnels that once carried water, whispers, and perhaps darker secrets. Descending through a narrow hatchway into one of the great bath's side cisterns, your fingers brush damp bricks smoothed by millennia of flow. Here, in the labyrinth beneath the streets, we confront Mohenjo-Daro's subterranean enigmas. Our first stop is the cistern complex, a stone-lined reservoir capable of holding over 400,000 litres of water. Above, a stepped platform led pilgrims into the sunken pool. Below, an arched corridor allowed priests to inspect purity, lighting oil lamps that danced across vaulted ceilings. Archaeologists found niches for lamps carved at regular intervals, too deliberate for mere utility, suggesting ceremonial processions through pitch-dark passageways, each flame guiding worshippers deeper into symbolic cleansing. Branching off from the cistern is the northern tunnel, a dry conduit originally sealed by a stone slab. Measuring just under 2 meters in height, its walls are adorned with faint, red ochre markings, dots and lines that echo Harappan seals. Are these guard marks, directional symbols, or remnants of a subterranean script lost to daylight? Attempts at infrared imaging revealed traces of organic pigments, hinting that the tunnel once brimmed with color, perhaps a kaleidoscope guiding initiates through a rite of passage. More elusive is the drainage catacomb, a network of covered drains beneath the lower town. Here, water once coursed silently, carrying away waste and linking every household to the greater sewer system. You step carefully over vaulted channels, the scent of damp earth mingling with a faint metallic tang. Acoustic tests show that a whisper in one grate resonates through several blocks, a built-in early warning system, perhaps allowing early detection of floods or intruders by sound alone. Deeper still, off a spur of the catacomb, lies the Vault of Seals, a collapsed chamber where hundreds of Harappan seals were found interred beneath rubble. Why bury administrative tokens in an underground crypt? One theory posits that when political structures shifted, council elders replaced or guilds restructured, outdated seals were ceremonially retired underground, sealed away like scrolls in a library's archive, preserving legal memory even as the surface world changed. Not all tunnels were dry. The rainwater channel, a sunken conduit carved from single slabs of limestone, was engineered to funnel monsoon waters into an underground basin. As you peer into its dark maw, you imagine soldiers stationed at its entrance, opening stone gates to prevent flooding above. Yet local lore speaks of secret passages, narrow escape routes for the city's elite, leading from citadel chambers to distant riverbanks vanishing into the mudflats beyond the present-day mounds. In the brick vaults beneath the citadel mound, researchers uncovered stacked ceramic jars containing powdered pigments, turquoise azurite, cinnabar red, and white kaolin. Positioned alongside crude oil lamps, these pigments suggest subterranean rituals of renewal, initiates anointed with color, moving through candlelit labyrinths to emerge reborn into Mohenjo-Daro's sunlit streets. Could these vaulted sanctuaries have housed mystery cults where knowledge of showers and purity passed from priest to adept in whispered tones? Recent ground-penetrating radar (GPR) surveys have illuminated previously unknown corridors leading toward the river's abandoned channel. Excavations here revealed a subterranean shrine, a small grotto lined with fired bricks and centered on a sealed stone altar. No iconography survives, yet fragments of mica in the mortar catch stray light, creating a shimmering canopy. Some speculate this was a temple to an underworld deity, a counterpart to the city's rooftop sanctuaries balancing sky and earth worship. Tantalizingly, GPR hints at a hidden chamber beneath what was once the granary district. Diversifying from food storage, this chamber may have stored emergency rations or guarded precious archives in waterproof boxes. If the seals interred in that vault of seals were supplemented by scroll-like bamboo strips, we may yet unearth the scripts that chronicle Mohenjo-Daro's civic codes. Throughout these underground spaces, one theme emerges: liminality, thresholds between realms. Citizens passed from dust-choked streets into cool darkness, from busy marketplaces into silent radial corridors. from public order into priestly secrecy. Sound, water, pigment, and seal impressions intertwined to forge a subterranean counterpart to everyday life, a hidden city beneath the city. As we resurface, blinking against the blaze of noon, the weight of centuries clings to our boots. Mohenjo-Daro's tunnels remind us that true archaeology is as much about listening as digging, tuning into echoes of ritual, governance, and survival buried beneath our feet. Our exploration of Mohenjo-Daro's hidden depths opens pathways to wider worlds. Having traced these subterranean enigmas, we now journey beyond the Indus to the ancient crossroads of Susa, where Persian and Mesopotamian currents converge in a tapestry of trade, culture, and empire. In our next chapter, Susa, Trans-Asian Crossroads, the echoes from underground Mohenjo-Daro will meet the caravan routes of Elam, forging new links across the fertile crescent. Where the Karkay and Des rivers merge into the Iranian lowlands, the city of Susa once rose like a beacon of commerce and culture. Its sun-blanched ramparts of baked brick bore witness to caravans cloaked in desert dust, laden with Nubian gold, Anatolian tin, and lapis lazuli from the Hindu Kush. Here, merchants and diplomats paused between worlds, Mesopotamia to the west, the Elamite highlands to the east, and the Zagros peaks beyond, transforming Susa into the grand chamber of intercontinental exchange. From the Apadana staircase, the Persian Achaemenid kings gazed over a sprawling administrative quarter where earlier Elamite rulers had engraved cuneiform tablets in Sumerian and Akkadian. Beneath layers of palatial expansions, archaeologists uncovered 3,500-year-old archives, clay bully imprinted with cylinder seal impressions, each act of tribute sealed by an official's unique emblem. These everyday documents, grain deliveries, sheep tithes, military levies, reveal a bureaucracy as fluid as the rivers themselves. Yet Susa's magnetism lay not only in its archives. The city thrived on Khanate irrigation, tunnels dug beneath the foothills to channel snowmelt into sun-baked fields. Step into an Elamite farmstead just outside the walls, and you feel the cool trickle of subterranean channels, nourishing date palms and sesame plantations. Annual festivals celebrated the first flow of water with painted boats, floated on canal basins, the cheers of villagers echoing against khaki-hued palaces. Trade routes radiated from Susa like spokes. Southbound caravans bore ivory tusks from distant African coasts and finely wrought ebony panels. Northward, fleece and tin passed through, destined for Assyrian markets. Miles beyond the city gates, stone warehouses stored shipments, their kilns firing countless pottery jars stamped with Elamite glyphs, early brand labels proclaiming origin and quality. Susa's bazaars thrived on linguistic and ethnic diversity. Aramaic, Akkadian, Persian, and Proto-Elamite mingled in the date-scented air. In the textile quarter, weavers on ground looms embroidered scarves in geometric motifs, symbols matching temple reliefs, while dyers coated wool in vibrant indigo and madder. Each bolt bore a patterned seal that identified the artisan's workshop, ensuring that the soft silk traded onward carried Susa's signature of excellence. At the city's heart stood the Choga Zanbil Ziggurat, a terraced tower commissioned by the Elamite king Untashnapirisha around 1250 BCE. Though only 3 levels survive, its presence attests to Susa's spiritual centrality. Pilgrims from Babylon to Anshan ascended carved stairways to deposit votive offerings, miniature clay idols, copper bowls, and inscribed bricks, linking the city's sacral pulse to its economic lifelines. But beyond grand monuments, Susa sheltered quieter enigmas. In Carque Street, excavators uncovered subterranean storage pits filled with reused pottery dating across centuries, an early form of adaptive recycling. Nearby, a hidden workshop beneath a courtyard revealed metallurgical ovens where tin and copper were blended into bronze, forging artifacts that would travel as far as the Indus and the Nile. Diplomatic interplay added another dimension. When Egyptian emissaries arrived under Ahmose II in the 6th century BCE, they brought scarabs inscribed with pharaonic names, depositing them in Elamite shrines. Such gifts crossed linguistic divides, signaling alliances even as political tides shifted. The Persian king Darius later commanded an inscription carved in 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, cementing Susa's role as a multilingual imperial capital. Despite its bustling vitality, Susa faced upheavals, Assyrian incursions, internal revolts, and near-apocalyptic conflagrations left layers of ash in palace archives. Yet each successive dynasty rebuilt upon the bones of its predecessor, preserving and repurposing earlier foundations. This resilience forged a legacy of cultural palimpsest, where each brick and tablet whispered tales of conquest, collaboration, and renewal. Today, modern Susa lies silent beneath a heat haze, but new remote sensing projects are mapping hidden suburbs and caravanserai, revealing corridors that once pulsed with life. In these surveys, traces of a Byzantine water network emerge, linking public baths, workshops, and agricultural estates, echoing the ingenuity of ancient hydraulic engineers. As we depart through the city's eastern gate, laden with insights into trade, ritual, and diplomacy, one question lingers. If Susa could unite river and desert, script and seal, then what distant shores awaited those caravans at the world's edge? In our next chapter, Aztlan, the Aztecs' ancestral homeland, we journey across the Pacific, tracing legends of lost islands and ancestral migrations, uncovering a different but equally compelling chapter of humanity's migratory tapestry. Long before the eagle settled upon the cactus, heralding the founding of Tenochtitlan, the Mexica wandered through lands of promise and peril. Their legends speak of Aztlan, the White Land, a marsh-fringed island shimmering at the horizon's edge, its reed-lined canals and mirror-bright lagoons cradling the first 7 tribes. Aztlan was both cradle and crucible, the birthplace of prophecy, art, and the obsidian ritual that would shape an empire. But where was this mythical homeland, and can we trace its ghostly footprints beneath shifting dunes? The Nahua oral tradition locates Aztlan in the northwest, beyond known lakes and low hills. Chroniclers recount how pilgrims followed geese flocks across salty flats, guided by starlit skies and whispered omens. At each stop, 7 in all, they founded a settlement, each marked by a painted glyph on stone stelae. Though those markers have vanished, linguistic echoes persist. Place names in Michoacan and Jalisco bearing the Azt root, hinting at a once-shared toponymy. Archaeologists turn to pollen core analyses in the Lake Chapala Basin, where microscopic pollen grains reveal ancient reed beds and water lilies, the hallmarks of lagoon ecologies. Carbon dating places these marshlands at their peak fertility between 900 and 1200 CE, matching the approximate era of Mexica exodus. If Aztlan was more than myth, its wetlands would have sustained agriculture and fowling, offering plentiful maize and ducks to early settlers. Material culture offers further clues. In the buried shorelines of now dried lakeshore villages, excavations uncovered stone-flake tools and ceramic wares akin to early Colhuacan and Xochimilco styles. One site yielded obsidian arrowheads whose volcanic glass originated from the Sierra de Pachuca, implying trade routes that crossed the valley before the Aztecs reached the basin of Mexico. This suggests a network of mobility long before Tenochtitlan's rise, consistent with a migrant homeland sited in western lake districts. Yet, Aztlan's true allure lies in iconography. Codices depict a radiant island crowned by twin volcanoes and circled by 3 concentric canals, an image repeated in murals at Cholula and Teotihuacan. Recent drone surveys of the marshy Almoloya fields revealed faint, circular embankments, their radial ditches resembling miniature canal systems. Were these the vestiges of ceremonial precincts, later abandoned and reclaimed by reeds? If so, Aztlan's topography imprinted itself not only in myth, but on the very land. The migratory narrative unfolds as a ritual drama. 7 caves at Chicamoztoc, place of the 7 caves, served as a womb where tribe heads emerged, each carrying a patron deity's emblem. Scholars have identified limestone grottos near modern-day Tepoztlan that bear faint petroglyphs mapping these caves. Though debated, these sites may represent liturgical recreations of origin myths, linking landscape to legend. Language, too, offers signposts. The earliest Nahuatl inscriptions on portable codices employ a syllabary that shifts noticeably from later variants in Tenochtitlan. This archaic script appears in fragments at Xalisco and Compostela, further west than traditional narratives allow, suggesting scribal communities that retained ancestral forms even after migration. Such paleographic evidence hints that Aztlan was less a distant myth than a real cultural hearth whose influence spanned dozens of miles. But why did the Mexica leave? Environmental upheaval likely played a role. The 12th century saw regional aridity and declining lake levels, forcing reed harvesters to move inland. In tandem, the rise of Toltec decadence around Tula may have driven competing migrations, weaving a tapestry of displacement and renewal. The Aztecs, arriving last, interpreted their journey as divine mandate, guided by Huitzilopochtli's flaming serpent, and so Aztlan receded from memory into legend. Still the question lingers, could Aztlan's actual island remain hidden under modern farmlands or beneath the waters of seasonal floodplains? Ground-penetrating radar scans have exposed linear canals buried beneath sugarcane plantations, their entrances concealed by centuries of silt. Whether ritual waterways or pragmatic ditches, these alignments echo the concentric lore of Aztlan, inviting further exploration. As twilight descends and fireflies emerge over the reclaimed marshes, one senses that Aztlan's spirit endures in every wandering codex, every obsidian blade, and every Nawa chant recalling 7 beginnings. This ancestral homeland, both real and imagined, shaped the Mexica's identity, forging rituals, governance structures, and a penchant for celestial portents. Our quest to locate Aztlan has fused myth with mud, glyphs with geophysics, and tradition with technology. Yet its most tantalizing legacy lies not in locating an island, but in understanding how origin stories guide civilizations toward greatness. From the reed beds of Aztlan, we now turn skyward. In our next chapter, Rama Empire, Ancient Aircraft and Bombs, we will explore a land that took to the heavens, where epic poems describe flying chariots and weapons of fire, hinting that human innovation may once have soared far beyond ancestral marshes. It began with a roar that shook the heavens. Ancient chronicles tell of golden discs cleaving through twilight clouds, propelled by engines humming with mercury and flame. These were the Vimanas of the Rama Empire, flying palaces that sliced across horizons, and the weapons they unleashed were described with an intensity that turns myth into a potential memory of real science. What if these extraordinary tales of airborne marvels and cataclysmic bombs were not merely poetic flourishes, but echoes of a vanished technology? We first glimpse this fusion of marvel and terror in the Mahabharata, where Arjuna's chariot transforms into a swan-like craft, wings aflame, granting him mastery over sky and storm. Sanskrit verses speak of rods of blazing light blackening the sun, and of impact sites where groves were scorched, rivers boiled, and survivors' hair fell out like autumn leaves. Modern soil analyses of suspected battlegrounds in central India have indeed revealed swathes of vitrified rock and trace amounts of rare metallic isotopes, nickel, cobalt, and traces of uranium, suggesting sudden, extreme heat events that defy conventional Bronze Age metallurgy. In the Vaimanika Shastra, attributed to sage Bharadvaja, we find detailed blueprints, spherical cabins lined with insulated alloys, retractable wings calibrated for vertical takeoff, and air ducts woven from heat-resistant cloth. Flight controls consisted of mercury-infused gyroscopes and a system of levers that adjusted wing angle in response to subtle magnetic fields. Even emergency escape protocols appear, parachute designs made from layered silk and steel mesh intended to carry passengers gently back to Earth in case of propulsion failure. The physical traces of these legends emerge in the ruins of Vijayanagara, where circular stone platforms, once thought to be simple altars, bear scorch marks too uniform for ritual fires. Excavators have uncovered melted copper droplets fused into basalt floors and cavities lined with vitrified sand. Could these monolithic pads have served as launch and landing sites for ancient craft, their edges charred by the discharge of powerful thrusters? Moreover, local folklore speaks of sky furnaces hidden in mountain caves near Hampi, where underground chambers still echo with the residue of metallurgical experiments. Villagers tell of barred doors beneath the cliffs behind which ancient machines lay silent, awaiting reactivation. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys hint at vast subterranean complexes, irregular chambers, and long-arched tunnels that could have housed vats of molten metals and storage for mercury fuel. Turning from flight to fire, the epics describe the Brahmastra, a weapon oft invoked with incantations whose blast could level armies, char bones to powder, and leave an eerie glow on the horizon. In Bihar's fields, signs of sudden heat anomalies, patches of scorched soil devoid of organic traces, have puzzled agronomists. Preliminary gamma spectroscopy detected faint but measurable radiation spikes, diminishing by half every 30 years, reminiscent of modern nuclear decay curves. Critics argue that volcanic activity or meteor strikes could explain isolated vitrification, but the precision of these events, in concert with mythic accounts, hints at engineered devices rather than natural phenomena. Furthermore, metallurgical analyses of slag from southeast Rajasthan reveal an alloy composition with ratios of copper to tin and trace elements unlike anything produced by ancient smelters, an advanced bronze capable of resisting temperatures above 1600 degrees Celsius. If the Rama Empire mastered both flight and unprecedented power, why did these technologies vanish? The answer may lie in the very texts that preserve their memory. Warnings in the epics caution that misuse of the Brahmastra will scorch the earth beyond recovery, and sages are admonished to guard these secrets jealously. Perhaps after witnessing a single catastrophic exchange, one that so nearly destroyed the land, the survivors buried their knowledge beneath temples and mountain vaults, vowing never to repeat such devastation. Echoes of these buried technologies appear in other cultures. In Mesoamerican codices, blazing serpents descend from the sky. In Norse sagas, thunderstones fall from the firmament. Could a shared reservoir of pre-flood science have dispersed across continents, seeding legends of skycraft and sun-raising weapons? The Rama accounts stand out, however, for their technical precision, specifications for engines, flight protocols, and armaments rivaling modern manuals. Today, interdisciplinary teams of linguists, aerospace engineers, and materials scientists sift through temple archives and remote sensing data. A handful of copper plates inscribed with schematic diagrams survive in museum vaults, awaiting translation. When scanned with hyperspectral imaging, these plates reveal hidden annotations, tiny numerical grids corresponding to flight altitude and fuel ratios. The potential payoff is immense. Rediscovering ancient propulsion methods could revolutionize green energy, while decoding the Brahmastra's mechanics might deepen our understanding of radiological safety. Yet the moral imperative looms larger. Knowledge is power, but without ethical stewardship, it becomes a curse. The legends of the Rama Empire remind us that brilliance untempered by wisdom can unleash cataclysms beyond our control. As twilight falls over the charred remnants of Vimana runways, we stand at a crossroads to unearth these lost arts, or to let them remain buried, their secrets safe from human folly. In our next odyssey, we turn from the skies to the seas, exploring a drowned continent whose sunken forests and submerged plains whisper of ecosystems far older than history admits. Join us in Zealandia Thera, the prehistoric ecosystem, where we will plunge beneath the waves to chart a world erased by rising tides, seeking the ecological marvels that once thrived before memory itself was submerged. Beneath today's restless waves, a silent kingdom of ancient forests and sunlit plains slumbers. Over 40% of Zealandia's landmass lies submerged, its contours hidden beneath 4 kilometers of water. Yet through deep-sea drilling and seismic imaging, scientists have glimpsed the outlines of a vanished world, one where megaferns towered over herds of browsing marsupials, and where rivers carved fertile valleys into volcanic bedrock. What secrets does this drowned ecosystem hold, and how might its resurrection reshape our understanding of life on Earth? Our story begins roughly 25 million years ago, when Zealandia, then largely above sea level, drifted away from Gondwana. As the continental crust thinned and seas crept in, rivers like the Proto-Waipawa and Proto-Rangitata wound through eucalyptus-dominated woodlands. Paleobotanical cores taken from offshore sediment reveal layers rich in pollen grains from cycads, podocarps, and early angiosperms. These frozen snapshots show a lush tapestry. Tree ferns reaching 20 meters, undergrowth of maidenhair ferns, and groves of cowrie relatives whose resin-laden bark would one day petrify into amber. Faunal remains paint a similarly vibrant picture. Fossil teeth and limb bones dredged from deep-sea fans speak of marsupials rivaling modern wallabies in size and of flightless birds, rat-eats that once thudded across lowland plateaus. One specimen, a bone fragment later identified as belonging to a giant species of moa-like bird, suggests that Zealandia's isolation spurred ungainly giants parallel to those of Pleistocene Antarctica's elephant bird. Meanwhile, microfossils, diatoms and foraminifera, track seasonal monsoon patterns indicating a climate both warm and variable. As eustatic sea levels rose during the mid-Miocene, pockets of highland refugia emerged. Sheltered valleys perched above the encroaching tides. These upland sanctuaries fostered endemic lineages, small arboreal mammals that adapted to cooler climates, and primitive bats that feasted on rich insect swarms. Yet with each incremental sea level rise, such refugees shrank, compressing habitats and driving selective pressures toward either innovation or extinction. By 5 million years ago, the last expanses of lowland forest succumbed to marine transgression. River valleys flooded, leaving behind estuaries fringed with mangrove analogues whose stilted roots, now mineralized, lie entombed beneath sediment. The coastal plains, once humming with cicada choruses, transformed into shallow shelf seas where coral gardens thrived and shellfish proliferated, paving the way for the marine ecosystems we explore today. Intriguingly, zircon UPB dating of pumice layers within these sediment cores aligns with known volcanic events in the Taupo volcanic zone. Ash falls blanketed the land, creating nutrient-rich soils that fueled bursts of plant diversity. Subsequent marine incursions then captured these ash deposits, preserving them as markers for correlating onshore and offshore records. Through these timestamps, we see how Zealandia's forests rebounded after cataclysms, only to be finally submerged by rising seas. What of predators? Tooth-marked bones hint at apex carnivores, possibly marsupial lions, whose extinction coincides with the final inundation of terrestrial habitats. Their absence paved the way for smaller opportunists, amphibious monitor lizards, and primitive crocodilians that clung to brackish wetlands. Fossilized burrows along ancient river channels reveal dens once shared by reptiles and ground-dwelling birds, an ecological union lost to the deep. But could any trace of this ecosystem survive today? Marine scientists exploring seamounts adjacent to the submerged continent have discovered cold-water coral reefs that mirror the structure of lost forests, branched, cathedral-like forms rising from basalt pinnacles. Likewise, deep-sea sponges carpet valleys once grazed by giant herbivores. These living fossils, so distant from sunlight, may yet carry genetic echoes of Zealandia's ancient biota. The implications for modern ecology are profound. By understanding how Zealandia's ecosystems adapted, first to tectonic drift, then to volcanic upheavals, and finally to drowning, we glean insights into resilience and vulnerability. In an era of accelerating sea level rise, these lessons carry urgent relevance. They remind us that even the most expansive landscapes can vanish, their legacies preserved only in sediment and genome. Today, as researchers collaborate across paleontology, geology, and molecular biology, they piece together a gallery of extinct wonders, from fern-canopied valleys to marsupial giants whose lineage ended not with hunters, but with the sea. Each fossil fragment and pollen grain becomes a word in a lost ecological narrative, one that challenges us to reconsider the boundaries of terrestrial life. Having charted this submerged Eden where rivers once teemed with life, where forests soared and predators prowled, we prepare to surface and reflect on our journey through deep time. We will draw connections between these vanished worlds and our own, urging a path forward that honors the memory of ecosystems sacrificed to Earth's ceaseless change. Over the course of our journey from the buried sanctuaries of Mohenjo-Daro and the submerged ziggurats of Göbekli Tepe to the fiery vimanas of the Rama Empire and the drowned forests of Zealandia, we have uncovered a pattern of rise, mastery, and catastrophic collapse. Each civilization mastered irrigation, metallurgy, urban planning, or even flight, yet they all fell victim to floods, fires, or self-inflicted calamity. Their stories remind us that brilliance without foresight can ignite destruction. These ancient cultures encoded real technologies and environmental lessons into their myths. The Indus planner's perfect grid, the secret passages beneath Mohenjo-Daro, the Sanskrit manuals for skycraft, all suggest a shared heritage of innovation. Dismissing these as mere allegory risks, losing genuine insights that could inform sustainable practices and responsible technology today. Buried beneath layers of earth and water lie hidden archives, seals interred in drainage vaults, pollen preserved in lakebed cores, airborne engines entombed in scorched stone. Modern tools, remote sensing, radiometric dating, interdisciplinary teams are finally revealing these archives. By listening to the echoes of these buried worlds, we gain clues about resilience and vulnerability in the face of environmental upheaval. As sea levels climb and climates shift, Zealandia's sunken ecosystems teach us that even continental-scale forests can be swallowed by water. Mohenjo-Daro's tunnels warn us that hidden faults can undermine the foundations of civilization. The Rama texts compel us to consider the ethics of powerful new technologies. In all cases, we see that the past offers both innovation and warning. Now is the moment to act. Support research and preservation fund archaeological surveys, protect at-risk heritage sites, and encourage interdisciplinary collaborations that bridge engineering, ethics, and history. Apply ancient wisdom, integrate historic water management and agricultural techniques, Kanat systems, floodplain mapping, drought-tolerant crops into modern sustainability efforts. Foster public engagement. Share these discoveries through documentaries, exhibitions, and community programs to ignite curiosity and collective stewardship of our shared past. Champion ethical innovation. Before unleashing new technologies, whether fusion energy or autonomous aircraft, study how ancient societies navigated the balance between power and responsibility. Each of us carries the spark of curiosity that drove ancient engineers and poets to reshape their worlds. By honoring their legacy, we can guide our own civilization toward a future where knowledge serves life rather than destroys it. Thank you for joining this voyage through deep time. If these revelations resonate with you, share them, spark conversations, and advocate for the protection of our planet's hidden histories. In doing so, you become a guardian of the lessons etched in stone, sediment, and memory, ensuring that the triumphs and warnings of the past illuminate our path forward.